My sister was sitting in Grandma's chair, not near it, not beside it, in it. Natalie had moved the little vase of white carnations I'd placed on the seat and set it on the windowsill behind her. Now she sat beneath the carved oak crest with her ankles crossed, one hand folded over the other, receiving condolences like a woman in a campaign photograph. Dad stood behind her with his palm on her shoulder. The chair had been empty when I went to rescue the missing food. I stopped in the dining room doorway, still holding a warm aluminum tray against my hip. 30 people were talking softly around me. Nobody looked directly at me, which meant several of them had already noticed. I carried the tray to the buffet and went back. "Dad," I said, "why is Natalie sitting there?" He glanced at the relatives nearest us. His face changed, not into embarrassment, but warning. "Because she represents this family." He said it clearly enough for Natalie to hear, for Aunt Elaine to hear, for Grandma's church friends to hear. Then he nodded at the tray in my hands. "Can you see if those potatoes need a serving spoon?" That was the moment I understood the chair had never been empty. It had been waiting to tell me where I belonged. 3 days earlier, Dad had called me at 7:12 in the morning. He always called before 7:30 when he wanted something, and after 9 at night when he wanted sympathy. "We've decided to do the memorial at Mom's house," he said. I was standing barefoot in my kitchen, watching coffee drip with the urgency of cold molasses. "Who's we?" "Your mother and I." Mom's voice floated from somewhere behind him. "And Natalie." "And Natalie," he added, "of course." Grandma Ruth had died on a Tuesday, 4 days after telling me the peaches I'd brought her were hard enough to damage drywall. She'd been 91. She'd also eaten 2 of them after I sliced them, sprinkled sugar over them, and pretended not to notice. The funeral home had handled the burial quietly, the way Grandma requested. The memorial was supposed to be for extended family and friends. I'd assumed we would use the church hall, where there were folding tables, industrial coffee urns, and no fragile objects for Uncle Pete to back into. Dad said the house would feel more personal. "What do you need me to do?" I asked. There was a pause just long enough to reveal that he had a list. Nothing crazy. Whenever Dad said nothing crazy, I mentally added 6 hours. He needed photographs gathered and arranged, food ordered, relatives called, the downstairs bathroom cleaned, Grandma's blue dress found for the display near the guest book. Someone had to locate the extra leaves for the dining table, though we would not actually be eating at it because, as Dad explained, people might scratch it. "Natalie's doing the eulogy," he said. I stared at my coffee mug. "Natalie? She's good in front of people. I know she's good in front of people." Dad heard the rest of the sentence anyway. "Don't start, Claire. I didn't start anything. It sounded like you were about to. That was one of Dad's gifts. He could win an argument before you were allowed to have it." When I arrived at Grandma's house that afternoon, Natalie was upstairs going through photographs. She had made 3 piles on the bed, usable, too sad, and Grandma looks angry. Grandma looked angry in most pictures because she considered smiling on command a form of dishonesty. Natalie held up a photograph from Christmas. "What about this one?" Grandma was seated in her oak chair, glaring at someone outside the frame. Natalie was leaning over the back of it in a red velvet dress. I was barely visible at the edge, carrying a gravy boat. "Perfect," I said. Natalie squinted at me. Was that sarcasm? I don't know. Was I always holding something? "You like being busy." It was such a clean little sentence. She said it while studying the photograph, not me. Natalie was 35, 4 years younger than I was, though around our parents she sometimes became 26, and I became somebody's divorced aunt who knew where the extra napkins were. She had a bright, open face and dark hair that looked arranged, even when it wasn't. When she hugged you, she used both arms. When she promised something, she believed herself. That was what made being angry with her exhausting. "I need help choosing stories for the eulogy," she said. "Dad wants something warm but not depressing. It's a memorial." Right, but apparently there are levels. I sat on the edge of Grandma's bed. Her robe still hung from the bathroom door. I'd washed it the previous Saturday and told her the belt was missing. She'd said, "It's on the hook behind you, genius." It had been. Natalie opened the Notes app on her phone. What did Grandma say when the power went out that Thanksgiving? That we should eat the ice cream first because God hates waste. Natalie laughed and typed it down. What else? I gave her the story about Grandma hiding cash in frozen vegetable bags because she said burglars never ate responsibly. I told her about the time Grandma refused to let the pharmacy put her on automatic refills because she didn't want a machine getting confident. I told her how, during her last winter, she'd made me drive through freezing rain for lemon cookies and then complained they had too much lemon. Natalie's thumbs moved quickly. "You remember everything," she said. "No, I was here." She stopped typing. For half a second, something uncomfortable passed over her face. Then Dad called from downstairs asking if I had checked the bathroom sink, and the moment closed. By the day of the memorial, I had spent 27 hours at Grandma's house. I knew because I kept a private count of things I planned to claim didn't bother me. Mom, Denise, moved through the rooms in a navy dress, touching objects without changing their location. Grief had made her strangely formal. She asked guests if they had found parking and whether the temperature was comfortable. Twice, I caught her standing alone in the laundry room. Dad wore the gray suit Grandma said made him look like a bank manager with digestive problems. Natalie arrived with her husband, Adam, 20 minutes before the first guest. She kissed Mom, hugged Dad, and handed me a paper bag containing 4 packages of cocktail napkins. "What are these?" I asked. "The napkins. I asked you to pick up the potato trays." Her mouth opened. "Potatoes," she said. "Yes." I heard napkins. "Why would I ask you to pick up napkins from a restaurant?" "I don't know, Claire. You have systems." Adam quietly became interested in the ceiling. The restaurant was 13 minutes away. I called, learned they were holding the trays, and drove over myself because the alternative was serving ham, green beans, rolls, and a decorative bowl of olives Grandma had owned since 1987. When I returned, Aunt Elaine met me at the side door. Elaine was Grandma's younger sister by 8 years, and the only person alive who could imitate Grandma's disapproving hum accurately enough to make Dad sit straighter. "You're leaking," she said. Grease had found a corner of the tray. Good. I was afraid this dress looked too expensive. Elaine took one end. "Where's your sister?" Representing. At that point, I meant it as a joke. Then we entered the dining room, and I saw the chair. After Dad told me why Natalie belonged in it, I found the serving spoon. It was in the kitchen drawer exactly where I had put it. Guests filled the house until the windows fogged. They spoke in the softened voices people use around death and sleeping dogs. Several told me the photographs were beautiful. A woman from Grandma's church squeezed my hand and said, "Your sister looks so much like Ruth sitting there." I said, "She does." It was easier than asking what resemblance had to do with occupancy. Natalie stayed in the chair until Dad called everyone into the living room for the eulogy. Adam stood and offered me his seat, but I declined. He was not responsible for the architecture of my family, and I didn't want his pity turning into another chore. Natalie stood near the fireplace holding 3 index cards. She was nervous. I could tell because she pressed her thumbnail against the corner of the top card until it bent. For one disloyal second, I wanted her to fail. Then she looked at me, and I nodded. She began with the power outage story. Grandma believed in priorities, she said. The year we lost electricity on Thanksgiving, she opened the freezer and announced that we had to eat the ice cream first because God hates waste. Everyone laughed. Natalie told it well. She waited in the right places. Her voice trembled at the end, in a way that was probably real. Then she talked about the frozen vegetables. "Our grandmother kept emergency cash in a bag of peas," she said. She told me it was because burglars never ate responsibly. Another laugh, warmer this time. I looked at the photograph beside her. In it, Grandma sat in her chair holding a coffee cup, her eyes narrowed at the camera. My reflection was faintly visible in the glass. Natalie moved to the final card. During her last winter, Grandma decided she needed lemon cookies in the middle of an ice storm. So I drove across town. I looked up. Natalie saw me. She paused for less than a second. And when I brought them to her, she took one bite and said, "Too much lemon." That was Grandma. Difficult, funny, completely herself. The room softened around her. Mom covered her mouth. Dad looked proud enough to burst. I remembered gripping the steering wheel through freezing rain. I remembered carrying those cookies up Grandma's slick front steps under my coat. I remembered her eating 4 after declaring them inedible. Natalie finished, and everybody applauded. Not loudly, tastefully. Dad hugged her first. I went to the kitchen and cut the ham. After the last guest left, the house looked gently ransacked. Crumpled napkins sat inside coffee cups. The carnations had begun to droop on the windowsill. Grandma's chair was empty again. Mom was wrapping leftover cake. Natalie and Adam had already gone because Adam had an early morning. Dad came into the kitchen with Grandma's brass house key in his hand. "We need everything sorted by the end of the month," he said. "Clothes donated, relatives contacted, kitchen cleaned out. You know." He dropped the key into my palm. It was still warm from his hand. I looked through the doorway at the oak chair. The vase remained where Natalie had put it, leaving a pale circle of dust exposed on the wood. Then I set the key on the counter between us. Dad frowned. "What's that?" "If Natalie represents the family," I said, "Natalie can represent it when there's work." Mom stopped folding foil. Dad gave a short laugh, waiting for me to join him. I picked up my coat. "Claire," he said. For once, I let somebody else answer. Dad said my name again when I reached the front hall. This time, it sounded less like a warning and more like he'd misplaced something. "Claire, come back here." I put one arm into my coat. The lining caught on my bracelet, the cheap silver one Grandma had given me when I turned 30. I stood there fighting with it while Dad watched, which robbed my departure of some dignity. Mom came out of the kitchen carrying a roll of foil. "Can we not do this tonight?" she asked. "I'm not doing anything tonight. You're walking out. The memorial is over." "That isn't what she means," Dad said. I freed my wrist and pulled on the coat. "I know exactly what she means." Mom's face pinched. She looked tired, not guilty, which was harder to resist. Guilt had edges. Tiredness made me want to put the kettle on. "You told us you would help with the house," she said. "I said I'd help with the memorial. You always help." There it was. Not gratitude. Evidence for the prosecution. Dad came closer, lowering his voice even though only the 3 of us remained. "You're angry about a chair. I'm angry because you told a room full of people that Natalie represents this family while I was carrying the food she forgot. Nobody was comparing you. You were. You just didn't expect me to hear it as a comparison. Oh, for God's sake." Mom rubbed the foil roll against her forehead. "Your grandmother died 4 days ago. We are all exhausted and everybody is sensitive. I'm not asking you to solve it tonight." "Then what are you asking?" Dad said. Nothing. That was the part he couldn't understand. He knew how to refuse a request. He had no practice with the absence of one. I opened the front door. Cold air rushed into the hall, stirring the corner of a sympathy card on the console table. "Take some ham," Mom said. I nearly laughed. "No thanks. There's too much. Then give it to Natalie." I regretted that one before the door shut. It was petty, and Grandma hated wasted ham. In the car, I sat with both hands on the steering wheel while my breath clouded the windshield. Grandma's porch light threw a weak yellow circle over the bare hydrangeas. Through the dining room window, I could see Dad pass behind the oak chair. Mom came after him carrying the foil. For a second, I imagined going back inside. I could apologize for the timing without apologizing for the truth. I could wrap the food, make a list, take the key, and postpone my anger until everyone was rested enough to dismiss it more politely. I started the car. At home, I found a lemon cookie in my purse. It was wrapped in a napkin, slightly crushed, and I had no memory of taking it. Maybe I had done it while arranging the dessert trays. Maybe Grandma's ghost had decided subtlety was overrated. I ate it standing over the sink. Too much lemon. My phone buzzed at 11:23. Natalie. I watched it ring until it stopped. Then a text appeared. Are you awake? She knew I was awake. Our family did not ask questions when assumptions were more efficient. I typed yes, deleted it, and set the phone face down. It rang again. Hello. What happened after we left? Natalie asked. No greeting. Her voice had the tight brightness she used when a restaurant had lost her reservation. Dad gave me the house key. And? I gave it back. Why? You're handling the house. Silence. Then, did Dad say that? I did. Claire, I don't know what you're talking about. He said, you represent the family. I thought you should get the full position. She exhaled directly into the phone. So this is about the chair. Apparently everybody had a meeting where you agreed it was just a chair. Dad asked me to sit there. And you did. It was his mother's memorial. I wasn't going to argue with him in front of people. But I was supposed to? I didn't know he was going to say that to you. You knew after he said it. Her voice lost some of its shine. What did you want me to do, Claire? Stand up in the middle of the room and make some big performance? You stayed there for 40 minutes because getting up would have made it weird. It was already weird. It was just weird in your favor. She made a soft, frustrated sound. This is what you do. You don't say anything while it's happening, and then later you act like everybody failed a test they didn't know they were taking. I walked to the living room and turned off a lamp I didn't remember switching on. You're right, I said. That stopped her. I should have said something sooner. I didn't mean, and you shouldn't have used the lemon cookie story. Another silence, longer this time. I was trying to make the eulogy personal. It was personal. It just wasn't yours. People say I when they're telling family stories. No, people say Claire when Claire drove through an ice storm. Do you want credit? I looked toward the dark window. My reflection looked older than 39 and meaner than I felt. I wanted Grandma to be remembered accurately. Oh, come on. She loved you, Natalie. You had your own memories. Most of my memories weren't funny enough for Dad's little production. Then maybe you should have said that. Her breathing changed. I could hear Adam in the background asking something. I have work tomorrow, she said. So do I. We'll talk when you're not this upset. I won't be sorting the house when I'm calm either. She hung up first. At 6:40 the next morning, Dad left a voicemail. We're all grieving, Claire. Your sister was trying to do something nice. Call me when you're ready to discuss this like an adult. At 7:15, Mom texted to ask whether the potato trays belonged to us or the restaurant. I sent her the restaurant's number. At 7:21, she asked if I could return them on my lunch break. I stared at the message while brushing my teeth. No, I typed. The word looked cruel by itself, so I added, I have meetings all day. That was true. It was also the first time I had treated my schedule as something that existed before my family required proof. I worked at a commercial printing company in Cranberry, coordinating orders that ranged from wedding menus to 6,000 safety manuals for a manufacturer that changed its logo every 18 months. My job was mostly deadlines, phone calls, and explaining that dark blue, but friendlier was not a color specification. By 9, I had 3 messages from Dad and 1 from Natalie. I ignored all 4. My coworker Tessa rolled her chair into my cubicle and held up 2 coffee cups. I brought the kind that tastes like melted candy, she said. You look like you need poor judgment. Tessa had attended the memorial long enough to sign the guest book, hug me, and disappear before Dad could assign her a trash bag. She was 42, divorced, and had recently started taking pottery classes because, according to her, she needed a hobby where failure could become an ashtray. I took the coffee. How bad? She asked. My father appointed Natalie official family representative. Is there a sash? There was a chair. I told her what happened, not all of it. I left out the lemon cookies because saying that part aloud made it sound both smaller and worse. Tessa listened without interrupting, which always made me nervous. When I finished, she asked, Are you actually done helping, or are you waiting for them to ask correctly? I'm done. That wasn't an answer. Yes, it was. She sipped her coffee. Okay. You don't believe me? I believe you. I turned back to my monitor. At 10:34, the family group chat woke up. Natalie had named it Ruth's House. Please respond, which meant she had inherited Dad's belief that capital letters created authority. She wrote that she would be at the house Saturday from 9 until 4 and asked everyone to identify anything they wanted before then. Cousin Linda wanted the floral serving bowl. Uncle Pete wanted the small television, if nobody else had spoken for it. Aunt Elaine wrote, Ruth hated that television. Uncle Pete replied, I'm not planning to marry it. Then requests began arriving for objects described only by emotional association. The green dish, Dad's old clock, the lamp from upstairs, not the ugly one. Natalie tried to organize the conversation. Within 11 minutes, she had promised the floral serving bowl to Linda and to Mom's cousin, Beverly. I saw it happen. My thumb hovered over the screen. I locked my phone and placed it in my desk drawer. Saturday morning arrived with sleet. For 4 years, Saturday had meant Grandma's house. Even when she was still driving, I went over with groceries or some invented excuse. Once her health declined, the visit stretched from an hour to an afternoon. She would sit in the oak chair and issue instructions while I cleaned around her. At 8:45, I was fully dressed with nowhere to go. I took off my coat. At 9:12, Natalie texted me directly. Where are the donation bags? I wrote, probably in the garage. Can you be more specific? I pictured the garage. Dad's old snow tires, shelves of canned tomatoes, the red-handled broom Grandma claimed was superior to every broom manufactured after 1998. No. 3 dots appeared, vanished, reappeared. Mom said you bought a whole box. I did. So where did you put them? I called Grandma's kitchen phone out of habit. Natalie answered on the 4th ring. Hello? In the garage, I said. There's a tall cabinet beside the freezer, bottom shelf behind the paper grocery bags. I looked there. Did you move the grocery bags? A pause. Rustling. Oh. I closed my eyes. Thank you, she said too crisply. You're welcome. Before I could hang up, she said, Are you coming? No. Claire, there are 40 years of things here. There are closer to 60. That's helpful. You asked. I thought maybe you could just come for an hour. Aunt Elaine is asking about a box of church programs. Dad keeps saying not to throw out anything important, and Mom is crying over expired cinnamon. The picture formed instantly. Mom sitting at the kitchen table with the spice bottle in her hand. Dad wandering from room to room declaring categories, Natalie opening every cabinet at once. My body was already preparing to leave. I felt it like a current. Find shoes, grab keys, bring markers, stop for sandwiches because nobody would remember lunch. I'm not coming, I said. Natalie's voice hardened. You're really going to make us do this alone. There are 3 of you. You know what I mean? Yes, I said. I do. I spent the morning cleaning my own apartment. At noon, I made grilled cheese and ate it at the table instead of over the sink. The quiet felt unnatural, almost accusing. At 2:13, Dad called. Your sister is throwing things away without checking. Then tell her to check. I did. She says she can't ask permission about every scrap of paper. That sounds reasonable. It isn't reasonable. Elaine's upset about some church bulletins. Programs. What? They were memorial programs from people Grandma knew. Some had notes inside. How do you know that? Because she showed them to me. Dad seized on the opening. Then you need to come over and help identify what matters. I looked at the half sandwich on my plate. You decided who represents the family, I said. I'm respecting your decision. I said something clumsy during an emotional day. You said it very smoothly. This isn't funny. I know. You are punishing your dead grandmother to prove a point. The sentence landed exactly where he aimed it. For a moment, I couldn't speak. Dad softened, hearing the silence as progress. Come over, please. We'll sit down and talk later. There it was, the promise of a future conversation in exchange for immediate labor. No. His softness disappeared. I don't recognize you. That makes two of us." I ended the call before he could. 20 minutes later, someone knocked on my door. Mom stood in the hallway holding a cardboard box against her chest. Grandma's blue robe lay folded on top. "I brought you a few things," she said. Behind the robe, I could see the brass house key shining between two stacks of old photographs. Mom saw me looking at the key. "It's not what you think," she said. "What do I think?" "That I came here to manipulate you." "Did you?" She shifted the box against her hip. "Can I come in before we hold the trial?" I stepped aside. She carried the box to my kitchen table and set it down with a sigh. The blue robe slid toward the edge, and I caught it before it fell. It still smelled faintly like Grandma's lavender detergent, though that could have been my imagination doing what grief paid it to do. Mom removed her coat. She had a damp patch on one shoulder where sleet had melted into the wool. "I picked things I thought you would want," she said, "before somebody accidentally donated them. Somebody named Natalie? She's trying. So are raccoons when they get into a trash can." "Claire." I lifted the key from between the photographs. Mom looked at the box instead of me. "Your father may have put that in there." "Did he?" "He carried the box to the car. That's not what I asked. I didn't see him do it. Mom could make a denial so technically accurate it needed its own attorney." I held the key out. She folded her arms. "I don't want it," I said. "Keep it in case you remember something important." "I've already remembered something important. Please don't turn every sentence into a weapon. You brought a key into my apartment hidden under Grandma's things. I brought you her robe with an assignment under it." She looked toward my living room where a basket of clean laundry had been waiting 2 days to be folded. Her eyes lingered on it as if she had discovered evidence that I wasn't using my free time responsibly. "Fine," she said. "Your father put the key in the box. I saw it when I parked. And you left it there. I thought you might change your mind. Why? Because this isn't you." I placed the key on the table between us. "What does that mean?" "It means you don't usually stay angry this long. It hasn't been 24 hours. You've been angry longer than that." That surprised me. Mom pulled out a chair and sat, rubbing her thumb along a scratch in my table. "I'm not blind, Claire." "No, you're just very committed to poor visibility." She winced. I wished I could take it back without surrendering the rest. Mom picked up one of the photographs. It showed Grandma and Grandpa at a picnic long before I was born. Grandpa wore a short-sleeved shirt with a pack of cigarettes folded into the pocket. Grandma had one hand raised, probably telling whoever held the camera to wait. "Your father shouldn't have said what he said," Mom murmured. I waited. He was emotional. There it was. "Do you ever get tired of adding cushions around him? He just lost his mother. I just lost my grandmother. And Natalie did too. Natalie got to sit in her chair and tell my stories." Mom put the photograph down. She was trying to honor Ruth. "She said I drove across town for the cookies. People understood she was speaking for all of us. That's convenient. Apparently she represents us when people are applauding, but not when the refrigerator needs cleaning." Mom pressed her lips together. Through the wall, I could hear my neighbor running a vacuum. The sound moved slowly down the hallway and stopped. "What happened to the church programs?" I asked. Mom's shoulders lowered. "Elaine found most of them. In the trash? In a bag by the back door?" "That means yes." Natalie thought they were old bulletins. They had names written inside. I know that now. Did she apologize to Elaine? She was being yelled at by 3 people, so no. Mom stood and walked to my sink, though there was nothing in it. She looked out the window over the parking lot. "Do you know why I was crying over the cinnamon?" she asked. I hadn't told her Natalie mentioned it. "No, Ruth never threw anything away. That jar expired 7 years ago. That sounds like her. I bought it for her." Mom turned around. Her face had gone soft and defenseless in a way I rarely saw. "Your grandmother asked me to bake an apple cake for one of her church luncheons. Mine was too dry. She said so in front of everybody naturally. Then she told me to try again the next week. I bought that cinnamon, made another one, and she said it was almost as good as hers." "Almost?" She wasn't reckless with praise. I smiled despite myself. Mom smiled too, then looked down. I found the jar behind 3 newer ones. It was stupid. No, it wasn't. I wasn't crying because nobody knew where anything went. I was crying because she kept it. I sat across from her. This was the trouble with my family. Every time I arranged them into a shape I could hate, one of them moved. Mom reached for the key, rolled it between her fingers, and placed it closer to me. "We need help," she said. "I know. Your father is making piles and then moving them. Natalie wants to finish quickly because she says lingering makes it worse. Elaine wants us to inspect every piece of paper for emotional significance. Pete keeps testing electronics. That also sounds like Pete. He found a heating pad from 1974 and plugged it in. Did the house burn down? Not yet." I turned the key so its teeth pointed away from me. "I can answer a specific question if somebody asks me one," I said. "I'm not making the lists. I'm not calling relatives. I'm not standing in that house while Dad tells me what everybody else is too upset or too busy to do." Mom nodded slowly, as if I had given her terms in a language she did not speak. "What about me? What about you? If I ask for help, then I'll decide whether I can help, the same way you decide when I ask you." Her eyes sharpened. "That isn't fair. I almost admired the speed of it." "No," I said, "it's equal." She put on her coat. At the door, I slipped the brass key into her palm and closed her fingers around it. "Keep the robe," she said. "I will. And the photographs. Thank you." She hesitated. "I didn't agree with him about the chair." "You didn't disagree." Mom opened the door. "No," she said, "I didn't." After she left, I sat on the floor beside the box. The photographs were mostly loose, their corners curled. Grandma at a church picnic. Grandma holding a string of trout beside Grandpa, who looked personally betrayed by the size of hers. Dad as a young man in plaid pants. Natalie at 16 laughing with her head thrown back. Me at 19 standing behind Grandma's dining chair with one hand resting on the carved crest. At first I thought I was smiling. Then I looked closer. I was watching someone outside the frame. Grandma was watching me. Under the photographs were 2 cardigans, a tin of buttons, 4 handkerchiefs, and a small wooden spoon with a burn mark on the handle. No jewelry, nothing valuable. Things that had absorbed the shape of her hands. The box was exactly right. That made me angrier than if Mom had filled it carelessly. I folded the robe and put it on the back of my bedroom door. For years, it had hung from Grandma's bathroom hook. The empty sleeves looked wrong against my white wall. My phone rang. Anna Lane. "I hear you've resigned," she said. "News travels fast. Your father called to ask whether Ruth ever told me who should have her desk. Did she? She told me your father would turn the whole thing into a goat rodeo." I laughed. Elaine continued. "I found the programs," Mom said. "Not all of them. There was one from Margaret Bell's service with a note Ruth wrote about the soloist. That one's gone. I'm sorry. So am I." Ruth said the woman sounded like a screen door in a storm. That seems worth preserving. It was. Elaine's humor disappeared so quietly, I almost missed it. "Your father had no business saying that to you," she said. I traced the burn mark on the spoon with my thumb. "Thank you. But don't get too comfortable being the only injured party." My hand stopped. "I didn't say I was. You didn't have to. It's a very pleasant chair. I've sat in it myself. Are we still talking about furniture?" "We are never talking about furniture." I leaned against the cabinet. Elaine said, "Natalie shouldn't have taken your stories. Frank shouldn't have put her in Ruth's place. Denise should have opened her mouth." All true. I hear a butt warming up. But you trained them. The words hit harder because she said them without anger. I trained them to what? To assume you'd handle it before they embarrass themselves. That sounds a lot like blaming me for being useful. It's not blame, it's bad news. Blame is much more satisfying. I put the spoon back in the box. Elaine sighed. "Ruth did it too." "Did what?" "Let you handle things. She needed help." "Yes. And she loved you. Both can be true. I know that." Do you? I looked toward the robe hanging in my hallway. Grandma's last year had been difficult. There were days she called me before breakfast because she couldn't find her glasses, then criticized how late I arrived. Days when she refused to let Dad drive her to the doctor because, as she put it, he asked too many stupid questions, leaving me to cancel work. I had told myself she chose me because she trusted me. I had never asked whether being chosen was always an honor. I don't want to do this tonight, I said. Good. I don't either. I have a meatloaf getting cold. You called me. I know. Very inconvenient. Before hanging up, she said, for what it's worth, I took the floral serving bowl. Linda and Beverly both asked for it. Yes, and neither of them can identify a peony. I'm protecting Ruth's standards. On Monday morning, Natalie sent a spreadsheet to the family chat. It had 7 tabs, 3 color codes, and a column labeled Final that contained 6 question marks. Tessa leaned over my shoulder while I looked at it. Your sister made this. She's entered the administrative phase of grief. Those borders are aggressive. At lunch, Natalie called. I need one question answered, she said. That depends on the question. Who is supposed to get the sewing machine? Aunt Elaine, I think. You think? Grandma mentioned it once. Well, Elaine says she doesn't want it, but Cousin Linda says Grandma promised it to her, and Dad says it should stay with somebody who actually sews. Does Linda sew? She says she plans to start. That means no. Natalie exhaled. Can you call her? No. She listens to you. She listens because I'm usually delivering the answer everyone already decided. Can you just tell me what to do? No. Why are you making every tiny thing so hard? I'm not. You asked for information. I gave it to you. I asked for help. You asked me to make the unpleasant call. Fine. Forget it. She hung up. That evening, I came home to find the floral serving bowl outside my apartment door. Inside, it was a folded note in Aunt Elaine's blocky handwriting. Some seats should remain empty until people learn why they mattered. Underneath, in smaller letters, she had added, also, this is hideous. Ruth was wrong about peonies. I brought the bowl inside and set it on my kitchen counter. It was, objectively, hideous. Large pink peonies sprawled across the porcelain as if they had survived an explosion. Grandma had used it for potato salad every Easter, apparently believing mayonnaise needed a dramatic backdrop. I texted Elaine, "You left something." She answered immediately, "No, I didn't. Linda and Beverly both want it. Then they should learn from loss." I put it in the cabinet above my refrigerator, the place where serving dishes went to become architectural features. By Sunday morning, Mom had sent 3 messages about dinner. The first asked whether 6:30 still worked. The second said Natalie and Adam could come closer to 7. The third asked if she should bring rolls or if I already had them. I called her. "Why would you bring rolls to my apartment?" "For dinner. I'm not making dinner." There was a pause filled with kitchen sounds. A cabinet opened. Something metallic dropped. "You always do Sunday dinner after a family event," she said. "I sometimes do. You did after Pete's surgery. That wasn't a family event. That was Pete trying to carry a television down basement stairs in socks. You hosted after Elaine's retirement. She'd been teaching high school chemistry for 36 years. We needed to make sure she didn't go back." Mom did not laugh. "I already told everybody," she said. "That sounds inconvenient." I heard my own voice becoming flatter, borrowing Dad's old talent for turning the other person's problem into weather. Mom sighed. "Fine. We'll do it here." "Okay. You could have told me sooner. You didn't ask me. You knew." "Yes," I said. "That's the issue." Another pause. "Can you at least bring a salad?" I looked at the groceries I had bought for myself. Lettuce, tomatoes, cucumber, feta. "Yes, thank you." She sounded so relieved that for one weak moment I considered offering dessert. I did not. Mom and Dad's house was 20 minutes from mine, a brick split level where every room still looked arranged for company. Mom had replaced the living room carpet twice, but kept the same brass magazine rack nobody used. Dad believed throw pillows were a scam and moved them from chairs onto the floor whenever he sat down. When I arrived with the salad, he was standing at the stove wearing an apron that said, "Grill Sergeant," though nothing was being grilled. "Your mother's behind," he said. "Mom was 3 feet away, stirring gravy." "I'm right here, Frank." "I know, I'm explaining." "To whom?" He looked at me as if she had proven his point. I set the salad on the table. "What can I do?" The words left my mouth automatically. Dad pointed toward a cutting board. "You can slice the roast." Mom turned from the stove. "You don't have to," she said. All 3 of us looked at her. She shrugged too casually. "It's just sitting." So was Dad. "I'll put out the salad," I said. Dad stared at the knife, perhaps hoping it would identify the nearest qualified woman. He picked it up. The roast was still bleeding when he cut into it. "You have to let it rest," I told him. "I thought you weren't helping." "I'm not. I'm witnessing." Mom made a noise that might have been a laugh and covered it with a cough. Elaine arrived carrying a grocery store chicken in a plastic dome. "Emergency backup," she announced. "We have a roast," Dad said. "You have warm beef with trust issues." Natalie and Adam came at 7:10 with 2 bottles of wine and no corkscrew. Dad owned 3 corkscrews, but this became a 10-minute discussion anyway because Natalie had brought a bottle with a synthetic cork that she claimed felt different. Adam eventually opened it without comment. He was a quiet, square-shouldered man who repaired commercial heating systems and seemed happiest when given a machine that could not talk back. He had the careful manner of someone who had married into a family with invisible wires across the floor. We sat down at 7:25. Dad's roast was cooked around the edges and nearly raw in the center. Elaine chose the chicken. Mom chose the chicken after watching Elaine survive 2 bites. Natalie insisted she liked rare beef and then moved it around her plate. Nobody mentioned the memorial until Dad did. "How much did you finish yesterday?" he asked Natalie. She set down her wine glass. "Most of the kitchen." "Most?" "The cabinets are empty except for the everyday dishes. Those need to be boxed." "I know." "And the pantry?" "Done." "What did you do with the canned peaches?" "They expired in 2019. "That doesn't answer the question." "I threw them out, Dad." Grandma would have considered this a personal attack. She believed expiration dates were suggestions made by cowards. Dad leaned back. "You can't just throw things away because there's a date on them. You told me to clean out the pantry. I assumed you'd use judgment." Natalie's face changed. Not much. Her mouth held still while the rest of her expression retreated. I knew that look. It was the face you made when Dad had assigned you responsibility and then treated every decision as proof you were unqualified. "The peaches were 6 years old," I said. He turned to me. "Were they sealed properly?" "I don't know. I didn't inspect them." "Then how can you have an opinion?" "I'm reckless." Elaine took another piece of chicken. Dad looked between Natalie and me. "This whole house situation has become ridiculous." "It's getting done," Natalie said. "Not correctly." "What would correctly look like?" "You could ask your sister." The table went quiet. Natalie's eyes moved to me. I took a drink of water. "She asked you." Dad frowned. "Asked me what?" "What correctly looks like." "You know what your grandmother cared about. So do you. I wasn't there every Saturday." "No," I said. "You weren't." Mom whispered my name. Dad's fork struck his plate. "I am not going to apologize for having a life. Did somebody ask you to?" "This is exactly what I mean." Every comment turns into another accusation. I almost pointed out that he was arguing with things I had not said again, but Elaine spoke first. "Frank, eat your dangerous meat." Adam lowered his head. His shoulders moved once. Dad looked at him. "Something funny?" "No, sir." "Adam," Natalie said, "you're 40. Please stop calling him sir." That did make Mom laugh. A small sound escaped her before she could stop it, and the tension loosened just enough for everyone to pick up a fork. After dinner, Dad handed me a stack of catering menus. I stared at them. "What's this?" "My retirement dinner." Dad had worked in regional insurance sales for 38 years and had been announcing his retirement for 6 months as if he had negotiated the end of winter. The party room at DeMarco's is available on the 22nd, he said. Your mother needs help comparing packages. Mom was wrapping slices of undercooked roast in foil. She did not look up. You can email these to me, Natalie offered. Dad waved her off. Claire knows how many people actually show up to these things. I'm not organizing your retirement dinner. His hand remained extended. I'm not asking you to organize it, just help. Help how? Make the guest list. Compare prices. Handle responses. Put together a photograph display. That's organizing it. It's a few phone calls. Then you can do it. Dad's expression tightened. After everything I've done for you, I don't think helping with one dinner is an unreasonable request. What have you done for me? The question came out sharper than I intended. Mom stopped moving. Natalie looked down at the menus. Dad gave a disbelieving laugh. You want a list? No. I want to know which thing means I owe you a party. I'm your father, and I'm your daughter. That's supposed to be a relationship, not an unpaid internship. Elaine whispered, oh dear, with obvious enjoyment. Dad dropped the menus on the counter. Forget it. Okay, no, really. Forget I asked. I said, okay. You don't have to be so cold. I picked up my empty salad bowl. Thanks for dinner, Mom. Dad went downstairs to find a football game he could punish with his attention. Mom followed me to the front hall. You could have said you were busy, she murmured, but I'm not. Then why not help? Because I don't want to. Her face registered that answer as if I'd used profanity. That's allowed, I said. Of course it's allowed. You don't believe that. I believe family helps family. Which family? She glanced toward the kitchen, where Natalie was speaking quietly to Adam. All of it, Mom said. Then all of it can organize the party. I hugged her before leaving. She held on an extra second, and I felt the confusing weight of her relief. She wanted me angry enough to tell the truth, just not angry enough to change her life. Natalie followed me outside. Sleet had turned to a thin rain that silvered the driveway. She crossed her arms against the cold. You enjoyed that, she said. What? Making him ask me about the house. I didn't make him do anything. You sat there while he tore apart every decision I made. I defended the peaches. How heroic. I opened my car door. She put one hand on it. You knew this would happen. What would happen? Dad deciding I'm incompetent the second something goes wrong. Nothing went wrong. You threw out old food. That's not the point. No, I said. It isn't. Her face flushed. You handed me a mess, then walked away so you could watch me fail. I didn't hand you anything. Dad did. You could have helped. There it is. I don't mean do everything. I mean tell me things. You knew about Elaine's programs. You knew Linda didn't really sew. You know which dishes people care about and which ones are just dishes. I know because I listened to Grandma. I was there. I know. No, you know it as a sentence. You don't know what it cost. Natalie's hand fell from the door. Rain gathered in her hair. She looked tired without makeup around her eyes, younger and older at the same time. You think it cost you more to love her than it cost me, she said. I didn't say that. You don't have to. You have a whole language made out of not saying things. I looked toward the house. Through the front window, Dad stood in the living room holding the menus. Mom approached him, and he handed them to her. Why did you take the chair? I asked. She glanced back at the window, too. Dad told me to. That's why he wanted you there. It's not why you stayed. Her jaw shifted. You want me to say I liked it? I want you to say something true. Fine. People were looking at me. Dad was proud of me. I had 3 cards with borrowed stories because my own grandmother and I barely knew what to say to each other at the end. And then you walked in looking at me like I'd stolen a body. I did not answer. She rubbed rain from her cheek. I stayed because standing up would have meant admitting, in front of everyone, that you deserved the seat more. The honesty surprised both of us. For 1 second, she looked almost relieved. Then she said, Happy? No, me neither. She turned and walked back to the house. On Tuesday, Mom texted the family chat that she had a follow-up appointment the next Thursday and would need a ride because Dad had his final retirement meeting. Before I could move my thumb away from the screen, Natalie answered, "I'll take you." A minute later, a separate message came from Mom directly to me. "Can you keep that afternoon open just in case?" I stared at Mom's message until the screen dimmed. Just in case was the phrase our family used when they wanted my time without admitting they had already spent it. I typed, "I can't keep the afternoon open." Her answer came before I put the phone down. "You said work wasn't busy." That had been Sunday. Apparently my availability had entered the family record. "Natalie offered to drive you," I wrote. "I know. This is only backup. I'm not available." 3 dots appeared, then vanished. She did not respond. At work, I told Tessa what Mom had asked. "You said no?" she asked. I did. With letters? All of them. She nodded solemnly. Historic. It shouldn't be. No. But neither should indoor plumbing, and I'm still grateful. For the next week, nothing happened. That was the deceptive part of boundaries. You expected thunder, but mostly you got silence and an occasional passive-aggressive question about your workload. Mom mentioned the appointment twice in the family chat. Thursday at 1:40, the medical building near the mall. She needed to arrive by 1:15 to update paperwork. Natalie reacted to both messages with a thumbs up. On Wednesday night, Mom sent a photograph of the appointment card. I did not respond. At 12:38 Thursday afternoon, my desk phone rang. I answered while comparing paper samples for a set of restaurant menus. "Claire?" Mom said. Her voice was too careful. "What happened?" "Nothing happened." "Okay. I was only wondering where you were." "At work." A machine thumped steadily in the production room behind me. Mom said, "My appointment. Natalie's taking you. She isn't here." I looked at the clock on my computer. "Did you call her? 4 times? Did she answer? Would I be calling you if she answered?" "Probably." But I let that go. "I told you I wasn't available. I know what you told me." She was speaking quietly, which meant Dad was nearby and she did not want him to hear her needing something. Or she wanted me to imagine her alone in her coat, waiting by the door. Both worked. "Mom, call the office and tell them you're running late. I can't drive after the drops. I'll order you a car. I don't want to get into a stranger's car. You got into Pete's car for 20 years and he checks his mirrors after he changes lanes. This isn't funny." "No, but you still need a ride." There was a pause. "Can't you leave work?" I looked at the schedule pinned beside my monitor. At 2, I had a press check for a hospital brochure that had already been delayed twice. My boss could have covered it. Tessa could have covered it. Someone always could, and that someone often became me elsewhere. "No," I said. Mom inhaled. "You can't, or you won't. Today they mean the same thing." She hung up. I opened a rideshare app and entered my parents' address. The first driver canceled. The second was 11 minutes away, a man named Victor with a silver Honda and a rating higher than most people I loved. I texted Mom the car information. She did not answer. I called her. "I sent a car," I said when she picked up. "Silver Honda, Victor, he'll be there in 9 minutes. This is ridiculous. He has your destination." "I don't know Victor. He doesn't know you either. You can both enjoy the mystery." "I'm not dressed for this." "You're dressed for the doctor." I meant emotionally. That was so unexpectedly honest, I softened. "I'll stay on the phone until he gets there. I don't need supervision." "Okay, don't hang up." So I didn't. I listened while she found her purse, checked for her insurance card twice, and told Dad where she was going. Dad's voice rose in the background. "What do you mean, a car?" Claire sent it. "Where's Natalie?" "I don't know, Frank." He took the phone. "You need to go get your mother. Victor is getting her." "Who the hell is Victor?" "The driver." "You called a taxi?" "A rideshare. That's a taxi with fewer labor protections." "I'm surprised you have an opinion. My wife is not getting into some random car. Then you can drive her. I have my retirement meeting." "So does Mom miss her appointment, or do you miss your meeting? That isn't the choice. It appears to be." He lowered his voice. "You knew your sister would forget." "No, I didn't." "You knew it was possible." "Yes. So did Mom, and you still refused to be available. I was never asked to drive her. I was asked to wait around in case Natalie didn't." "Same difference." "It really isn't." Mom's voice came from farther away. "The car's here." Dad said, "Hold on," then covered the phone badly enough that I heard every word. "You are not getting in that thing. I have an appointment. I'll reschedule it." I already waited 3 months. Then tell them what happened. What happened is my daughter forgot and my husband has lunch. It's not lunch. It has a buffet, Frank. I pressed my lips together. Dad returned to me. "I hope you're pleased with yourself. I'm trying to get Mom to the doctor. You're trying to prove a point. Victor is trying to get Mom to the doctor. I'm trying to work." Mom took the phone back. "He's in the driveway," she said. "Does the plate match?" "Yes." "Then go." "I know how cars work, Claire." The door closed. A moment later, she said, "He has mints. That seems promising. I'll call you when I get there." She did not call. Victor's route showed her arriving at 1:26, 11 minutes late, but within the office's grace period. I added a tip large enough to apologize for my family. At 1:31, Natalie called. I let it ring once before answering. "Oh my God," she said. "I forgot Mom." That's a difficult sentence to hear out of context. "Is she okay?" "She's on her way." "Did you take her?" "I sent a car." "You put her in a rideshare?" "She's going to an eye appointment not crossing the Oregon Trail. I had it in my calendar for 2:40. The appointment was 1:40. I know that now. I could hear traffic around her. She was breathing quickly. "What happened?" I asked. "The donation people came early to Grandma's house. Dad called because they wouldn't take the mattress, and then the guy said they could take the bookcase if it was downstairs. So Adam came over during his lunch break, and I completely lost track of time. Call Mom. She isn't answering. She might be checking in. Dad is losing his mind. He kept his meeting." "That's different. Why?" "I don't know. Because it's Dad." There it was, expressed with the weary certainty of gravity. "Natalie, call the doctor's office. Make sure she arrived. Can you do it?" "No." A beat passed. "Right," she said. "Of course. Don't do that. Do what?" "Ask me to handle it and then act offended when I don't. I'm panicking. So call the office." She ended the call. Tessa appeared at the edge of my cubicle holding the hospital brochure proof. "You missed a comma," she said. "Where?" She pointed to the 3rd paragraph. I had reviewed that paragraph twice. "You okay?" she asked. "My mother made it to her appointment. That sounds like the wrong answer to my question. I'm fine." She leaned against the partition. "You know you can take the afternoon. I don't need to. Wanting to is also a reason. I don't want to." That was not entirely true. I wanted to sit in the waiting room beside Mom and complain about the outdated magazines. I wanted to hold her purse when they called her name because she always took too long gathering her things. I wanted to be the daughter who showed up. I just didn't want showing up to remain something everyone could schedule without me. At 4:15, Mom texted, "Home, eyes still blurry." Victor waited while I got inside. I wrote, "Good. How did the appointment go?" "Fine." That single word managed to convey medical stability, maternal injury, and a future invoice. Dad called 5 minutes later. "Your mother could have fallen getting out of that car." "Did she?" "That's not the point. I'm beginning to think nobody knows what the point is. The point is, family should be able to count on you. Family did count on me. That's why Mom had a car. She needed her daughter. She had a daughter. Natalie volunteered, and Natalie made a mistake. Why does her mistake become my obligation? Because you're reliable." He said it as if he were praising me. I closed my eyes. "No," I said. "That's over." "What's over?" "Reliable doesn't mean permanently on call. Don't be dramatic. I'm being specific." He launched into a speech about compassion, emergencies, and everything he and Mom had done for us. While he talked, I opened the family chat. "For future appointments, please ask me directly if you want me to drive. If I say yes, I'll be there. I won't be backup for plans I didn't make." I sent it. Dad stopped speaking when his phone chimed. "Did you really need to announce that?" "Yes." Within a minute, Mom reacted with a question mark. Then Natalie wrote, "She's right. I said I would do it. I screwed up." Dad responded, "Nobody's blaming you, honey." I stared at the words. A second later, Natalie sent, "Maybe you should." No one wrote anything after that. I muted the chat and finished the brochure proof. At 6, I found Natalie waiting beside my car in the office parking lot. She had her arms folded over a thin black jacket and looked furious enough to be cold by principle. "How long have you been here?" I asked. 10 minutes. You know phones exist. I wanted to say this in person. The parking lot lights had come on, casting pale circles over the wet pavement. Employees passed us on their way out, glancing over with the polite curiosity reserved for other people's disasters. Natalie held out Mom's appointment card. "I put it in my calendar wrong," she said. "That was my fault." "I know. Dad says you set me up." "I didn't." "I know that too." She looked toward the building behind me. "He isn't even angry at me," she said. "He keeps saying I have too much going on with Grandma's house and you should have helped. That sounds like Dad. It's making me crazy. Being protected, being treated like I'm too fragile to be responsible for anything." The sharp answer I had prepared dissolved. She pushed the appointment card into her pocket. "Mom won't talk to me," she said. "She will. She talked to you." She used 4 words. That's 3 more than I got. I unlocked my car but did not open the door. "Apologize without explaining the donation truck," I said. Natalie looked at me. "Is that what you want from me?" "We're talking about Mom." "No, we never are." Her voice softened. "I'm sorry I forgot her appointment," she said. "I'm sorry you had to deal with it. You're apologizing to the wrong person. I know, I'm practicing." Despite myself, I smiled. She almost did too. Then she said, "Dad asked me to organize his retirement dinner. Congratulations on the promotion." I told him no. That surprised me more than the apology. "What did he say?" "He said he'd ask you once you got over yourself." We stood there under the parking lot light, both of us quiet. For the first time, Dad's confidence that I would return did not feel like a chain around my ankle. It felt like a mistake he hadn't discovered yet. "What are you going to do?" I asked. "About the party?" "About Dad." Natalie gave me a tired look. "I thought you were the one with the new philosophy. My philosophy is apparently, use a car service." "I'm going home. I'm apologizing to Mom. Then I'm opening the expensive wine Adam hides behind the cheap wine. He hides it from you?" "He hides it from Dad. That makes more sense." She started toward her car, then stopped. "Claire?" "What?" "Dad didn't ask me to organize the retirement dinner because he suddenly trusts me." "I know. He asked because he wanted me to say yes and then need you." The accuracy of that made my stomach tighten. Natalie watched my face. "You didn't think of that." "No, I did." She walked away before I could decide whether the observation was an apology or a victory. The next morning, an email from Dad arrived with the subject line, "Quick opinion." Attached were 3 catering menus, a guest list, and a photograph of the private room at DeMarco's. The body of the message said, "Not asking you to organize. Just tell me which package makes most sense. Need answer by noon." I replied, "I'm not reviewing the party options." He answered 6 minutes later. Unbelievable. At 12:10, he sent another email to the whole family announcing that the retirement dinner would be a simple, informal gathering due to current circumstances. Elaine replied, "Will there still be cake?" Dad did not answer. Mom called during my lunch break. "Thank you for sending the car yesterday," she said. "You're welcome." Victor was very nice. He had mints. He also had a mother who lived near Ruth's church. That seems statistically less important. He waited until I was inside. I asked him to. "I know." We sat in silence over the phone. I could hear dishes knocking together on her end. "How are your eyes?" I asked. "Fine. The pressure hasn't changed." "Good. The doctor wants me back in 6 months. If you give me the date, I'll check my schedule." Mom did not respond immediately. "You'd take me?" "If I say I can, yes." "So you're not refusing to help?" "I never said I was. It feels like you are. I'm refusing to be assigned." Another dish clinked. I pictured her unloading the dishwasher, phone wedged between her shoulder and ear, moving through the kitchen she had maintained for 31 years. I was angry, she said. I know. I'm still a little angry. I know that, too. But I shouldn't have assumed you'd leave work. No, you used to. There was no accusation in it this time. That made it worse. I used to assume nobody else would, I said. Mom's voice softened. Sometimes nobody else could. Sometimes? And sometimes? Sometimes you didn't make them try. The dishwasher rack rolled shut. I don't know how to do this your new way, she said. I don't have a new way. Just ask me. I did ask you. You asked me after making a plan that depended on me saying yes. That sounds like a distinction you learned from Tessa. Tessa would have used profanity. Mom laughed. A real laugh, brief and surprised. I miss you, she said. I looked down at my sandwich. I'm right here. That isn't what I mean. I know. We agreed to meet for lunch the following Tuesday. She chose a diner halfway between my office and her house, then spent 5 minutes insisting it was not because she wanted to make things easier for me. By Friday, the family chat had accumulated 78 messages about Grandma's belongings. I had muted notifications, but I still opened it more often than I admitted. Uncle Pete took the television and reported that it worked perfectly once he replaced the remote batteries. Linda no longer wanted the sewing machine after learning it weighed 93 pounds. Beverly accused Elaine of claiming things outside the process, which I assumed referred to the floral bowl sitting above my refrigerator. Natalie posted photographs of labeled boxes lined neatly along Grandma's dining room wall. Keep, donate, ask family, church, and Dad decide, which was already twice the size of the others. Then she sent a picture of the oak chair. Does anybody want this separately from the dining set? Dad says keep set together, but Linda only has room for chairs. My thumb rested over the screen. Several relatives reacted with hearts. Nobody answered the question. I closed the chat. 2 hours later, Natalie messaged me privately. Do you want it? I wrote, I don't know. That's not helpful. It's honest. Dad wants an answer by Sunday. Dad wants answers the way other people want oxygen. Claire. I looked at the photograph again. The chair stood beside stacked boxes. The vase of carnations gone. A strip of blue painter's tape crossed one arm, marked Dining in black ink. I typed, Don't give it away yet. Natalie responded with a thumbs up. It irritated me more than it should have. On Saturday, I went to Grandma's house to find her recipe box. I told myself that was different from helping. Mom had called to say the kitchen would be packed the next morning, and Grandma had once tucked a recipe card I'd written into her wooden box. It was for tomato soup, nothing special, but she had corrected my measurement for basil in green ink and written, Better if Claire makes it. I wanted it. Natalie's car was in the driveway. The front door stood open and an old rug lay rolled on the porch like a body in a mystery nobody cared to solve. Inside, the house smelled of cardboard, dust, and the lemon furniture polish Grandma used so heavily that every Saturday visit began with my eyes watering. Natalie was kneeling in the living room surrounded by framed photographs. She looked up. You came. For a recipe card. Her face closed slightly. Of course. I'm not pretending otherwise. The box is still in the kitchen. I stepped around a lamp wrapped in a bath towel. The dining room looked twice its normal size without the table leaves and sideboard clutter. The oak chair remained near the wall, blue tape across its arm. I peeled the tape off. Dad labeled everything, Natalie said behind me. He put tape directly on the finish. It's painter's tape. He would have grounded us for that. He also stood on the dining table yesterday to remove a curtain rod. I looked at her. I have pictures, she said. In the kitchen, cabinet doors hung open over empty shelves. Natalie had cleaned the pantry. The old cinnamon jar was gone. Did Mom keep it? I asked. The cinnamon? Yes. She put it in her purse like she was smuggling medicine. Grandma's recipe box sat beside the sink. The cards inside were soft at the edges and crowded with her handwriting. Most began with someone's name: Elaine's rolls, Denise's cake almost, Pete's chili no beans. I found mine behind soups. My handwriting looked younger, rounder. Grandma's green correction cut through the half teaspoon and changed it to 1. At the bottom, she had added, "Don't rush onions." That was all. I slipped the card into my purse. When I returned to the dining room, Dad was coming through the front door with coffee. His face brightened when he saw me. "Good. You're here. For a recipe. That's fine. While you're here, Natalie needs help going through the photographs." Natalie stood in the living room doorway. "I didn't ask. You said you didn't recognize half the people." I said I didn't recognize 2 people. Dad handed me a coffee. Mine had cream, no sugar. He remembered that much. "Sit down for 20 minutes, he said. "It won't kill you." I held the cup without drinking. "I'm leaving." "For God's sake, Claire." Natalie crossed her arms. She said she came for a recipe, and you've been complaining all morning. I wasn't complaining. I asked if you knew who a man was. You keep stopping every 5 minutes to ask questions. That's because you get mad if I make a decision. Dad looked at me, inviting me into the familiar position between them. "You see what I'm dealing with." Natalie's face went blank. I set the coffee on a box. "Her labels make sense," I said. Dad blinked. "What?" "The system. It's organized, except nothing is finished. She's been doing it for 2 weeks." "With everybody pulling her in 6 directions," Dad said. "That's why you should have been here. She isn't good at this kind of thing." Natalie stared at the floor. "You chose her," I said. "This has nothing to do with the memorial. It has everything to do with it. You wanted her in the chair because she looked right. Now you're angry she doesn't work like me. I wanted both of my daughters to contribute in their own ways. What's my way?" Dad gestured at the boxes. "This. Details. Following through. And hers?" Natalie looked up. Dad hesitated just long enough. "She connects with people." "Which people?" Natalie asked. He turned toward her. "Don't join in." "Why? I'm already standing here." Dad's face reddened. "I'm trying to finish your grandmother's house while the 2 of you turn it into a referendum on your childhood." "No," I said. "You're trying to finish it by putting us back where we were." He laughed once, without humor. "You always liked being indispensable, Claire." The sentence stopped me. Dad saw it. "You did," he continued. "You made sure everybody came to you. You took over, then acted burdened. Now you're withholding help because you finally figured out it gives you power." Natalie said Dad, but I was already hearing all the times I had corrected Mom's lists, redone Natalie's plans, answered questions before anyone finished asking, the satisfaction of knowing where the donation bags were, the private count of hours nobody knew I was keeping. "That's not fair," I said. "Neither is abandoning everybody in the middle of this." I picked up my purse. Natalie followed me to the door. "You don't have to go," she said quietly. "Yes, I do." He was being an ass. He wasn't entirely wrong. Outside, the cold hit my face. Natalie stepped onto the porch in her socks. "Claire." I turned. She held out the blue painter's tape from the chair, crumpled in her fist. "I'm not giving it to Linda," she said. "That isn't your decision." "No, it's yours." I looked past her into the dining room. "Not yet," I said. She nodded. As I drove away, I could see Dad through the front window directing her toward another box. For the first time, Natalie didn't move. I drove 3 blocks before pulling into a pharmacy parking lot. Dad's words had followed me into the car. "You always liked being indispensable." I wanted to reject the sentence completely. That would have been easy if it hadn't contained a small, ugly piece of truth. I liked being the person who knew which drawer held the batteries, which cousin was allergic to walnuts, what time Mom's appointment started even when I wasn't driving her. I liked the pause before someone said, "Ask Claire." It was often the closest my family came to admiration. What I didn't like was that admiration becoming an invoice. My phone lit up with messages from the family chat. Dad, "Sorting is on hold for today. Too much tension." Natalie, "It's not on hold." Dad, "Don't start hauling boxes by yourself." Natalie, "I'm not. Adam is coming back. Dad, do whatever you want. Natalie, that seems to be what everyone thinks I do. I considered calling her. Then I recognized the impulse. Go back, interpret Dad, steady Natalie, smooth the afternoon. I put the phone in the glove compartment and went inside the pharmacy for toothpaste I didn't need. By Monday, I had thought about Dad's accusations so much it had become background music. At 10, my manager, Martin, came to my desk carrying a thick folder. Martin was a decent man whose management style depended on finding the most competent person in the room and slowly blocking all exits. Quick favor, he said. I looked at the folder. Define quick. We need to rerun the Whitmore safety manuals. Their compliance department changed 12 pages. The presses are booked through Wednesday. I know, and shipping is Thursday. I know. Then what's the favor? He smiled as if I had made a joke. Work your magic. Normally, I would have taken the folder, skipped lunch, moved 2 smaller jobs without telling their clients, and stayed late fixing a crisis created by people who would later thank the department. Instead, I opened the production schedule. If Renee handles the file corrections and you move the Carlson menus to the digital press, I can coordinate the rerun. Martin's smile faded a fraction. Renee's swamped. So am I. You're faster. I am. He waited for me to turn that fact into surrender. I didn't. Finally, he said, I'll talk to Renee. After he left, Tessa rolled over. What was that? She whispered. A conversation? No. Your mouth said words, and a man left carrying his own folder. I've never seen anything like it. He'll be back. He may be wandering the halls right now. I tried to focus on my screen. Tessa watched me for a moment. You're doing the thing where you win and then feel guilty. I'm not guilty. Your eyebrows are confessing. I turned toward her. My father said I made myself indispensable so I could resent people for depending on me. That's annoyingly specific. Thank you, I meant him. It isn't completely wrong. Tessa considered this. You do take over. I know. You alphabetized my desk once. You had invoices under takeout menus. I had a system based on geological layers, and that's why your electric bill was late. She held up one finger, still taking over. I folded my hands in my lap. Tessa lowered her voice. You being controlling sometimes doesn't mean your family gets unlimited access to you. I know. Do you? That's what Elaine said. Then Elaine is clearly brilliant and beautiful. You've met her. I stand by half of it. Martin returned 20 minutes later to say Renee would handle the corrections. The manual shipped on Thursday. Nobody died. The Carlson menus were 2 hours late and the client did not notice. That should not have felt revolutionary. Mom was already seated when I arrived at the diner Tuesday. She had chosen a booth near the window and spread 3 sugar packets beside her coffee in a perfectly straight line. You're late, she said. I checked my phone. It's 12:02. I didn't say how late. A waitress appeared and called us girls, though between us we had passed 70 years old a while ago. Mom ordered turkey on rye. I ordered soup and grilled cheese. Your father's retirement dinner is next Friday, she said after the waitress left. I know. We chose the middle package. Okay, chicken, pasta, vegetables, salad. Sounds good. The cake is chocolate with vanilla icing, because Frank believes chocolate icing is too much chocolate. He has suffered quietly. Mom stirred her coffee. I'm telling you because you're invited, she said, not because I need help. Thank you. I made the guest list. Good. Natalie is collecting responses. I raised an eyebrow. She offered. Also good. Elaine is making a photograph board. That is a dangerous amount of authority to give her. She included a picture of your father with a mustache from 1983. Then the party is already a success. Mom smiled, but her attention returned to the sugar packets. I want you to come as a guest, she said. I will. And I don't want any speeches about family labor. I wasn't planning one. Natalie says you're very committed to honesty now. That sounds like Natalie. Our food arrived. Mom removed the top slice of bread from her sandwich and rearranged the turkey before eating it. Your grandmother could never leave a sandwich alone either, I said. She said restaurants hid bad meat in the middle. Where else would they put it? Mom replaced the bread. I saw Frank tell Natalie to sit in the chair, she said. My hand stopped around the soup spoon. You were in the room? I was by the front window. You had gone for the potatoes. What exactly did he say? Mom looked toward the parking lot. He told her people would expect immediate family to sit together. Natalie said the chair should stay empty. Frank told her an empty chair would make the room feel like a funeral. It was a memorial, I know. So Natalie did object. Not for long. The soup had a thin skin forming across the top. I broke it with my spoon. Why didn't you say anything? Mom took a bite and chewed slowly. I could say everything was happening quickly. You could. I could say I didn't want to correct your father in front of people. You could say that too. They'd both be true, but not all of it. She set down her sandwich. No. The diner's front door opened, bringing in a rush of cold air. 2 women in business suits slid into a booth behind us, discussing expense reports. Mom folded the corner of her napkin. Ruth had a way of choosing people, she said. When she chose you, it felt wonderful. It did. When she didn't, you knew. I waited. For years, I was the woman her son married. She corrected my cooking, my curtains, the way I loaded a dishwasher. Then you got old enough to visit her on your own, and suddenly she had someone she trusted. You sound like you resented me. I think I did sometimes. The admission landed more gently than a denial would have. Mom looked ashamed. Not because you helped her. Because she let you see parts of her she kept from me. She complained to me and confided in you. She complained to me, too. I know. That almost made it worse. I pushed the grilled cheese through a spot of soup. Did that have anything to do with the chair? I don't know, she said. It was the first answer she had given me without polishing it. I saw Natalie sit down, and I thought it was wrong. I also thought Ruth would have liked the picture it made. Frank behind her. All those people looking. Natalie always looked more like that side of the family. And me? You looked like the person who had arranged the picture. The words hurt, but Mom's face did too. When Frank said she represented the family, Mom continued, I saw you standing there with the tray. I knew what he had done. You still didn't say anything. No. Why? Because if I defended you then, everybody would have looked at you. They were already not looking at me. I told myself I was protecting you from a scene. And now I think I was protecting myself from having to choose a side. I looked out at the wet parking lot. I wasn't asking you to choose between your daughters. You were asking me to choose between telling the truth and keeping the room comfortable. That isn't the same thing. No, Mom said. It isn't. The waitress refilled our coffee. Mom waited until she left. I'm sorry. It wasn't a dramatic apology. She didn't touch my hand or cry. She looked down at the 3 sugar packets and said it like a fact she wished she had learned sooner. I believed her. I don't know what to do with that yet, I said. You don't have to do anything. The answer was so unlike my family that I looked at her. Mom gave a small shrug. I'm trying your new way. After lunch, she insisted on paying. I let her. In the parking lot, she handed me a plastic container. What's this? Apple cake. Did you make it with the expired cinnamon? I'm grieving, not suicidal. I hugged her. She tucked her chin against my shoulder. Your father doesn't know how to apologize when he thinks the other person also did something wrong, she said. That sounds limiting. He believes apologies are verdicts. I'm not asking you to translate him. I know. She stepped back. I was translating myself. That evening, Natalie posted a photograph of Grandma's empty living room. The curtains were down. Pale rectangles marked where pictures had hung. A single lamp remained in the corner, unplugged. Finished, she wrote. Dad responded first. Thanks to everyone who pitched in. Glad this is finally behind us. I read it twice. Then I typed, Natalie did most of it. And Elaine added, Adam's back did the rest. Adam reacted with a laughing face. Mom wrote, Thank you, Natalie. Dad said nothing. Natalie messaged me privately. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. Why? Because it's true. She started typing, stopped, then sent, "The chair is in Mom and Dad's garage. I didn't let Linda take it. Thank you. Do you want it?" I looked at the empty rectangle in the photograph where the dining table had stood. "Not yet," I wrote. 2 nights later, someone knocked on my apartment door. Natalie stood in the hall holding a brown paper grocery bag against her chest. Her hair was damp from the rain, and the bottom of the bag had gone dark with water. "I found things," she said. "For me, for us." She looked past me into the apartment, uncertain. In all the years she had treated my home like an extension of the family's storage system, I had never seen her wait to be invited inside. I opened the door wider. Natalie stepped inside and wiped her shoes on the mat. Her gaze went straight to Grandma's robe hanging from my bedroom door. "Mom gave you that?" She brought it with a key hidden underneath. Natalie closed her eyes. Dad. Mom knew. Mom knowing is often a separate department. She carried the grocery bag to my kitchen table. I moved 2 unopened envelopes and the apple cake container to make room. "Do you want coffee?" I asked. "At 8 at night? You once drank espresso after Thanksgiving dinner. I was 28 and stupid. You reorganized Mom's pantry until 2 in the morning. It needed zones. So does prison." The joke settled some of the tension. Natalie took off her jacket and draped it over a chair. "I'll have water." I gave her a glass. She drank half of it without sitting, then folded the wet top of the grocery bag down with careful, unnecessary precision. "I found these in different boxes," she said. She began taking out objects, a bundle of church memorial programs tied with kitchen string, Grandma's chipped yellow mug, 3 wooden napkin rings, a small pair of sewing scissors shaped like a bird, the metal clip from one of the frozen vegetable bags where Grandma had kept cash, though the cash was long gone, a cracked plastic magnifying glass. "You saved the programs," I said. "Most of them." "Elaine has the rest. She told me one was missing." Natalie pulled a folded sheet of paper from the yellow mug. Margaret Bell's name was printed across the top. At the bottom, in Grandma's handwriting, were the words, "Beautiful service." Soloist sounded like a screen door in a storm. Nobody else seemed to notice. I laughed before I could stop myself. Where was it? Inside a cookbook with a recipe for chicken divan. I think Grandma used it as a bookmark. Elaine is going to be thrilled. I know, I'm saving that apology for in person. She set the program aside and reached back into the bag. The last object was a white ceramic dish shaped like a lemon. I had seen it hundreds of times on Grandma's windowsill, usually filled with safety pins, rubber bands, and those tiny plastic tabs from bread bags. Natalie pushed it toward me. "This should be yours." "Why?" "Because you bought it for her." "I did, at a craft fair. She said you overpaid." "That doesn't narrow it down. She also said it was ugly." "Then why did she keep it?" Natalie looked at the floral serving bowl visible through the glass door of my upper cabinet. Apparently taste was complicated. I followed her eyes. "Elaine abandoned that here. She stole it. She rescued us from a dispute. Linda is still sending me messages about it. Tell her Elaine claimed peony jurisdiction." Natalie smiled but didn't sit. I touched the cracked magnifying glass. "Why bring these to me because Dad had them in a box marked junk? That doesn't answer the question. I didn't know where else to put them. You said they were for us." "They are." I leaned back against the counter. "Natalie." She finally sat at the table. Her fingers moved around the rim of her water glass, wiping away condensation. "I apologized to Mom," she said. "How did it go?" She said she accepted my apology but needed time to trust my scheduling. That sounds healthy. It was awful. Yes, she also made me take home 7 containers of food, so I think we're rebuilding. "Did you explain about the donation truck?" "No." I looked at her. I said, "I forgot and I was sorry. Like you told me. I didn't think you were listening. I usually listen. I just don't always enjoy it." She looked down at the objects between us. Dad didn't apologize to her for keeping his meeting. He says the meeting couldn't be moved. Could it? It was lunch with his manager and 2 people from Human Resources. He spent 20 minutes showing them pictures from a fishing trip. "How do you know?" he told Adam. I sat across from her. "Why are you here?" Natalie pressed both palms flat against the table. "Because I'm sorry." "For Mom's appointment?" "No, I mean, yes, but that's not why I'm here." She took a breath. "I'm sorry I sat in Grandma's chair." The refrigerator motor came on behind me. She continued before I could answer. "Dad told me to sit there. I said it should stay empty, and he said people needed someone to receive them. He told me I looked the most like Grandma. Then he put his hand on my shoulder and people started coming in. I know that part. I liked it." The words were barely above a whisper. I liked that he chose me. I liked people coming over and telling me I looked like her. I liked that Dad was proud. "I know. No, you guessed. I'm telling you." Her face had gone pale beneath her makeup. "When you walked in with the potatoes, I knew exactly what it looked like. I knew what it meant. Not to everyone, maybe, but to you." "Then why didn't you get up?" "Because I didn't want to give it back." The answer landed cleanly, without the protective padding I expected. Natalie looked directly at me. I told myself standing up would make a scene. I told myself Dad was grieving. I told myself you didn't care about ceremonial stuff. But the truth is, I wanted the seat. And I knew if I stayed there, you would keep doing everything anyway. I folded my arms. "You also took my memories." "Yes, the cookies." "Yes, you said you drove." I know what I said. "Why?" "Because my own stories were bad." "I don't believe that. They weren't the kind people wanted." "What kind were they?" Natalie stared at the yellow mug. The last time I visited Grandma alone, she asked why I came if I was going to spend the whole time checking my phone. That sounds like her. I had a work problem. I was waiting for an email. "What happened?" "I left." "You left because she criticized your phone?" "I left because she said, 'Claire can sit in a room without making everyone compete for her attention.'" I looked away. She shouldn't have compared us. No. But she wasn't wrong. That made it worse. Natalie turned the metal vegetable clip over in her hand. "There was another time I brought her soup and she said you'd already made some. I offered to clean and she said you had a system. I tried to sort her pills once and she told me not to touch them because you knew how she wanted them. She was particular. She was territorial. And so were you." My eyes returned to her. I was trying to keep her safe. "I know. But every time I tried, you corrected me before she could decide whether I was useful. You put her evening pills in the morning slot. One time. It could have mattered." "I know it could have mattered. That's not the point." I almost laughed at how much our family loved that sentence. Natalie saw it too. "Fine," she said. "Maybe it is the point. You were better at taking care of her. You knew more. I came in late, did things wrong, got defensive, and then came less often because I hated feeling like an extra. That was your choice." "Yes, no argument, no explanation." She set down the clip. "I kept waiting for someone to invite me back differently. Grandma, you, Dad, I don't know. Nobody did. You didn't need an invitation. I thought I did. We sat with that. The easiest thing would have been to tell her she should have come anyway. It would also have been true. But I remembered Dad telling me I liked being indispensable. I remembered how I had sometimes answered Grandma's questions for her when Natalie was in the room, how quickly I stepped between mistakes and consequences, then resented being the only person standing there. "I didn't make it easy," I said. Natalie's eyes lifted. "That doesn't excuse you staying away." "I know, and it doesn't excuse the memorial. I know that too. But I didn't make it easy." Her shoulders dropped, not with relief exactly, but with the release of something she had been bracing against. "I used your stories because I wanted everyone to think I had been there," she said, "and I wanted Dad to keep looking at me the way he was looking at me. He looked proud. He always looks proud when I'm standing still." The sentence was sharp enough to cut both of us. "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means he likes the version of me that can be introduced. Good job, good marriage, good dress," says the right thing in front of relatives. "When I mess up, he doesn't make me fix it. He calls you. You've enjoyed that arrangement. Yes. Again, no defense. I also hate it, she said. Both things can be true, apparently. Elaine has started a school. She charges in meatloaf. Natalie smiled faintly. I picked up Margaret Bell's program. Dad protecting you has never felt like protection from my side. I know. It felt like he valued you more. He did. The immediate agreement hurt more than if she had tried to soften it. Maybe he still does, she added, but not because he knows me better. He doesn't. He values whatever story I let him tell about me. And me? He values what you do. That isn't better. No. Rain tapped against the kitchen window. Natalie reached for her jacket but didn't put it on. I'm sorry I sat down, she said. I'm sorry I stayed after I saw you. I'm sorry I used the cookie story and said it happened to me. And I'm sorry I let you serve everybody while I accepted condolences, like I'd done something. My throat tightened. She kept going. I'm not saying Dad made me do it. He gave me the chair. I chose not to stand. I looked at the lemon dish between us. I believe you, I said. Does that mean you forgive me? No. She nodded once. Okay. You don't get to be angry about that. I'm not. You look angry. I'm uncomfortable. Good. That seems fair. She put on her jacket. Before she stood, she said, There are 4 boxes left in Mom and Dad's garage, mostly things Dad couldn't decide about. I'm going Saturday morning to finish labeling them. I waited. Would you come for 1 hour? She asked. 10 to 11. Not to take over. I need you to identify photographs and tell me if Grandma promised anything to someone. After an hour, you can leave, even if we're not done. It was the first request anyone in my family had made that included an ending. Yes, I said. 1 hour. Natalie looked surprised. Don't make me regret it. I'll set a timer. At the door, she glanced back toward the table. The lemon dish is definitely yours, she said. You can have the magnifying glass. It's cracked. It represents this family. She laughed, then covered her mouth as if laughter was still something we needed permission to share. After she left, I carried the grocery bag to the spare room, but I kept the lemon dish on the table. Inside it, beneath 2 bread tabs and a safety pin, Natalie had placed 1 store-bought lemon cookie. I took a bite. It was terrible. I wrapped the rest in a napkin and saved it anyway. At 9:58 Saturday morning, Natalie stood in Mom and Dad's garage with a timer set on her phone. You were serious, I said. I'm trying a new thing where I listen to the words you say. How's it going? Honestly? Exhausting. The 4 boxes were arranged on a folding table beneath handwritten signs, photos, kitchen, personal, and who knows. Adam had moved Dad's lawnmower into the driveway to make room. He was now leaning against the workbench with a mug of coffee, wearing a sweatshirt that said, No heat, no problem. You don't have to stay, Natalie told him. I know. Then why are you standing there? In case either of you finds something heavy or starts throwing punches. We don't throw punches. Adam took a drink. You throw sentences. Mom came through the interior door carrying a plate of muffins. I thought you might be hungry. We're only working an hour, Natalie said. You can get hungry in an hour. Mom placed the muffins beside the photographs. Natalie moved them to the workbench before crumbs could enter the family archive. The oak chair stood near the garage wall under a faded quilt. Even covered, I recognized the angle of its arms. I looked away first. Natalie started the timer. 59 minutes and 58 seconds, she said. No pressure. We began with the photographs. Most were loose snapshots from the 70s and 80s, faded toward the same brownish shade. Natalie held them up one by one while I identified whoever I could. Grandma and Elaine at Lake Erie. Which one is Grandma? The one glaring at the sun. They're both glaring. The one making it personal. We turned the photograph over. Grandma had written Ruth and Elaine, Presque Isle, 1976. I was right, I said. You had a 50% chance. That is how expertise works. Adam laughed into his coffee. We found a photograph of Dad with his mustache, standing beside a company car in a tan sport coat. Elaine had apparently missed this one when creating his retirement display. Natalie held it near her phone. Should I send it to her? Immediately. Dad entered the garage just as Natalie took the picture. No, he said. You haven't even seen it, she replied. I know what it is. That means it has power. I was 30. You were a regional distributor of adult films, Adam said. Dad stared at him. Adam raised both hands. The mustache, not the job. I laughed so hard I had to put down the stack I was holding. Even Mom smiled from the doorway. Dad did not. That photograph is not going on the board. It's your retirement, Natalie said. People should understand what you survived. Dad took the picture from her and slipped it into his shirt pocket. Elaine has plenty. Natalie sent the phone image anyway. I watched Dad notice. His mouth tightened, but he didn't say anything. He seemed unsure whether joking with Natalie was still permitted now that she had begun saying no. What's all this? He asked, looking at the table. The last 4 boxes, Natalie said. I thought you finished. I finished the house. These were in your garage. You moved them from the house, which means the house is finished. Dad looked at me. Glad you finally came to help. I agreed to 1 hour. You don't have to keep announcing it. She wasn't, Natalie said. I was. Dad opened the box marked kitchen and removed a glass measuring cup with the red numbers worn nearly invisible. This is good, he said. Why is it in here? Because nobody asked for it, Natalie replied. Your mother can use it. Mom looked at the cup. I already have 3. That one was Mom's. Yes, Frank. That's why it's in the box of Ruth's things. He put it back with more force than necessary. We kept sorting. A pair of salt and pepper shakers went to Elaine because one was shaped like a cat, and she hated cats. Natalie said this was not a valid reason. I said it was exactly the kind of reason Grandma respected. We found a linen table runner Mom wanted, an unopened deck of cards Adam claimed, and a wooden meat tenderizer Uncle Pete had apparently been looking for since the memorial. Nobody knew why he believed Grandma had it. Dad said Pete had loaned it to her. Mom said Grandma bought it after Pete ruined hers. We labeled it Pete and decided history could survive without a verdict. At 10:27, I lifted a framed photograph from the personal box. Grandma sat in the oak chair wearing her red cardigan. I was crouched beside her with a screwdriver in my hand, tightening the loose spindle. My hair was tied up badly, and I was laughing at something outside the frame. I had never seen the picture. Who took this? I asked. Natalie glanced over. I did. When? 2 Christmases ago. You were there? She gave me a look. Occasionally. I turned the frame over. Nothing was written on the back. Grandma was telling you the screwdriver was wrong, Natalie said. It was a Phillips. She said you needed the flat one. She was wrong. I know. That's why I took the picture. She kept arguing while you were literally fixing it. Dad came closer. Let me see. I handed him the frame. His face shifted when he looked at it. For a moment, he was not defending anything. He ran his thumb across the glass over Grandma's red sleeve. Then he said, that should go on the retirement board. She was my mother. The old reflex rose in me. Explain why the picture belonged to me. Prove that I had repaired the chair, list the hours. Before I could speak, Natalie took the frame from his hand. No, she said. Claire gets it. Dad looked startled. I didn't say I was keeping it. You said it should go on your board. For one night, I want it, I said. He looked at me. Fine, you get it. The phrase made the photograph sound like a concession he had granted. I placed it beside my purse. Dad wandered toward the covered chair. What are we doing with this? He asked. Waiting, Natalie said. For what? For Claire to decide. He looked at me again. Decide what? Whether she wants it? Dad pulled the quilt away. Dust flashed in the cold light from the open garage door. The chair's carved back rose above the boxes, darker than I remembered. The dining set is already in storage, he said. Linda could use the chair. She doesn't have the rest of the set, Natalie said. She has room for one chair. That is not the same thing. Dad turned to me. Do you want it or not? The question sounded simple. That was his favorite disguise. I'm not ready to decide. It's furniture, Claire. Then why did it matter who sat in it? Mom stepped fully into the garage. Frank, she said. He ignored her. I already told you I worded that poorly. You told me I was angry about a chair. You are. No, I'm angry about what you used it to say. Dad dropped the quilt over the back, but it slid sideways and exposed one arm. We are not doing this again. We never did it the first time. I lost my mother, and that gave you the right to humiliate me? I did not humiliate you. You sent me for a serving spoon after telling everyone Natalie represented the family. There were guests. I needed you to act appropriately. Mom said, she did. Dad turned. Mom's hands were clasped in front of her. She looked nervous, but she did not move back into the house. She acted appropriately, Mom repeated. You didn't. His face changed in a way I had rarely seen. Not anger at first. Confusion. What are you doing, Denise? Telling the truth. Oh, so now everyone's rehearsed this? No. Natalie stood beside me, still holding the picture frame. Dad looked from her to Mom to me. You three have decided I'm the villain because I asked the family to pull together. No one called you a villain, I said. You don't need to. I know how this works. What works? Natalie asked. You say something awful, and then if anyone remembers it, they're ganging up on you? I'm not discussing this with you. Why not? I was in the chair. You apologized, he said almost accusingly. Yes. For what? Natalie stared at him. You really don't know. I asked you to sit with the family. If Claire interpreted that as some ranking system, I can't control her interpretation. You told her I represented the family. It was an emotional day. You keep saying that like emotions make words less real. Dad pointed toward the table. Finish the boxes. That's what we came out here to do. My old instinct was to keep arguing until he understood. The newer one was to leave before he could make understanding the price of my peace. Natalie's timer sounded. The cheerful electronic melody was absurd in the silence. She picked up her phone and stopped it. That's the hour, she said. Dad looked at the boxes. You're not finished. We knew we might not be. He turned to me. You're leaving now? Yes, in the middle of this. We finished 3 boxes, Natalie said. There's half of one left. It would take 15 minutes. Then I'll do it, she replied. You have somewhere to be? Dad asked me. No. His eyebrows lifted as if I had confessed. I agreed to 1 hour. And if your sister needs another 15 minutes? She asked for an hour. You're proving a point again. No, Natalie said. She kept an agreement. Dad's gaze stayed on me. I put the framed photograph in my bag and pulled on my coat. Mom picked up the plate of muffins. Take one. I'm not hungry. It's blueberry. I took one. At the garage door, I paused beside the chair. I touched the loose spindle I had repaired. It held firm beneath my fingers. Keep it covered, I told Natalie. I will. Dad gave a short, disgusted laugh. I left anyway. Mom called that evening. I'm sorry about the garage, she said. You didn't cause it. I waited too long to say something. But you said it. Frank isn't speaking to me. He will. He went to the basement and watched 2 football games, including one he recorded last year. That's commitment. He says I embarrassed him in front of Adam. Adam thought he sold adult films. That was your fault. You laughed. So did you. I coughed. I smiled. Mom grew quiet. I don't want you to think I'm taking your side against your father. Then don't call it a side. What should I call it? What you said. The truth. She sighed. That sounds very simple when you say it. It isn't. The last box was finished without me. Natalie sent a photograph at 11:13 that night. Every object had a label. She had placed the oak chair under the quilt again, with a note taped to the fabric instead of the wood. Waiting for Claire. I saved the photograph but did not answer. Dad's retirement dinner arrived with cold rain and a parking lot full of people who had spent decades selling insurance near him. DeMarco's private room held 6 round tables instead of the 8 Dad originally wanted. The decorations were simple: blue napkins, small bowls of wrapped mints, and Elaine's photograph board on an easel near the entrance. The mustache picture occupied the center. Dad had drawn a black line through the mustache with a marker, which only made people stop longer. Mom wore a dark green dress and kept checking the buffet even though the restaurant had employees. Natalie stood beside the guest book with Adam, greeting people she had met once at company picnics. She had not asked me to take over. I arrived carrying nothing. The sensation was so unfamiliar that I checked my car twice before going inside. Mom kissed my cheek. "You came." I said I would. "I know." She looked at my empty hands, then caught herself. "You look nice," she said. "So do you." Dad saw me from across the room. He hesitated, then nodded in my direction. I nodded back. For most of dinner, we managed the careful politeness of people carrying glass near a hard floor. Dad's former manager told a story about him driving through a snowstorm to deliver policy documents. Elaine whispered that nobody had thought to ask whether the documents wanted to go. After dessert, Dad stood near the photograph board and tapped his water glass with a spoon. The room quieted. He thanked his colleagues, thanked Mom, thanked the restaurant staff, and looked toward the table where Natalie and I sat. Then he smiled. "The most important thing I've learned in 38 years," he said, "is that loyalty means showing up, even when it isn't convenient." A few people nodded. Dad rested one hand against the easel. When you work with families, as I have, you learn that plans change. People disappoint you. Circumstances test you. But the people who matter are the ones who don't walk away when things get difficult. Across the table, Natalie looked at me. I kept my face still. Dad thanked his former manager for taking a chance on him, though I knew they had started at the company within 6 months of each other. He thanked Mom for tolerating late dinners and canceled vacations. He thanked both my girls for keeping the family together after Grandma died. That was when Elaine muttered, "Oh, horse shit," into her coffee. Adam coughed into his napkin. Dad continued, "We haven't always agreed on what keeping a family together looks like. My mother's passing changed all of us. Some people became more sensitive. Some of us had to learn that even the strongest families go through periods where everyone gets a little lost." He looked directly at me when he said, "lost." It was not a public attack. Dad was too careful for that. It was a message wrapped in enough general language that anyone who objected would appear determined to open it. Then he raised his glass. To loyalty. Most people raised theirs. I did too. Not because I agreed with him. Because one of Dad's former co-workers was smiling at me from across the room, and I was tired of every family gathering becoming a test of which discomfort I was willing to expose. Dad finished to warm applause. Elaine stood immediately afterward without being invited. "I've known Frank since he was 13, she said, "which means I deserve some kind of pension too." The room laughed. She told 2 stories, both harmless and one probably exaggerated. In the first, Dad tried to fix Grandma's washing machine and flooded the basement. In the second, he drove 3 hours to pick up Elaine when her car broke down, then refused to let her pay for gas. "He has always been very good at showing up," she said, glancing toward him, "and very bad at letting anyone forget it." The laughter was louder this time, including Dad's, though his jaw tightened. "To retirement," Elaine said. "May Frank finally have enough free time to examine his own opinions." Dad raised his glass without drinking. Music started after that, soft enough for conversation. Several former co-workers came over to tell me how proud Dad was of Natalie and me. One woman with silver hair held my hand and said he had talked about us constantly. "He said you were the practical one," she told me. "And your sister was the people person, did he?" "Oh, yes. He always knew exactly who to call for what." I smiled until she moved away. Natalie joined me near the photograph board. "You okay?" she asked. I'm deciding whether Elaine's toast was supportive or attempted manslaughter. Both things can be true. You're getting annoying with that. I learned from experts." She looked toward Dad, who was posing for a picture with Mom and his former manager. "That speech was about you," she said. "Parts of it. All the parts where he wasn't thanking himself. I'm not confronting him in the middle of his retirement dinner. I didn't ask you to. You looked like you were going to. I was checking." "For what?" "To see if you wanted me to say something." I thought about the memorial, how she had stayed seated because standing would have made the room look at us, how often both of us had let the presence of witnesses decide what truth was allowed. "No," I said. "But thank you for asking." She nodded. At the end of the night, Mom began gathering the centerpieces into a cardboard box. The restaurant manager approached. "Ma'am, those belong to us." Mom looked down at the glass bowl in her hands. "Oh, they were lovely," the manager said kindly. Mom put it back. Natalie whispered, "She almost stole the decorations. She's becoming Elaine." Dad stood near the door accepting final congratulations. When I put on my coat, he touched my elbow. "Stay a minute." His hand dropped quickly, like he remembered I might object to being positioned. Mom saw us. "I'll wait by the car." "You don't have to," I said. "I know." She went anyway, leaving Dad and me near the coat rack while restaurant employees cleared plates behind us. The room looked less important with the overhead lights on. Dad adjusted the knot of his tie. "So?" he said. "So what?" "What did you think?" "The party was nice. That's all." "Elaine's board was good. She used the mustache picture." "Yes." "I assume Natalie sent it." "She did. He waited for me to condemn her. When I didn't, he rubbed the side of his glass with his thumb. You didn't have to sit there looking miserable during my speech. I wasn't miserable. You weren't happy. Those aren't the only choices. It was a speech about my career. It was a speech about loyalty. Loyalty mattered in my career, and apparently my failure to demonstrate it." He exhaled through his nose. "This is what I mean. Your grandmother died and you changed." "No, Grandma died and you told me where I stood." "Oh, not the chair again." "Yes, the chair again." A server wheeled a cart past us stacked with dirty glasses. Dad stepped out of the way, irritated by the interruption. "I apologized for how that came across," he said. "No, you didn't." "I said it was an emotional day and I worded it poorly." "That isn't an apology. That's weather. What do you want from me, Claire? I wanted you to know me well enough not to do it. I do know you. You know what I can handle. I know a great deal more than that. Like what?" His expression hardened. He started listing things. "I hated mushrooms. I took my coffee with cream. I was afraid of deep water after falling off Uncle Pete's boat when I was 23. I preferred window seats on airplanes and always arrived too early. My first serious boyfriend had cheated on me, and Dad had driven 40 miles in sleet to pick me up because I was too upset to drive." The memories came quickly, some tender enough to hurt. "I know you," he said when he finished. "Don't stand there and tell me I don't." I looked at him. "You're right." He seemed startled. "You do know me," I said. "That's why it was worse." His mouth opened, then closed. "You knew I would do all the work and not cause a scene. You knew I'd serve the potatoes. You knew I'd help Mom afterward. You counted on everything you know about me, and then you gave Natalie the place that would look good. I asked your sister to sit in a chair. You told me she represented the family. I already said that was clumsy." "It wasn't clumsy? You meant it?" "I meant she was receiving people." "Then why didn't you say that?" Dad looked toward the lobby where Mom stood beneath the awning watching the rain. "Because I was trying to get through a difficult day. So was I." His shoulders lowered. For a second, he looked his age. 64, newly retired with no office waiting Monday morning, and his mother's house already emptied. I wanted to touch his arm. I wanted him to make it easy. Instead, he said, "I'm sorry you felt excluded." There it was. The apology that left the choice untouched and placed the injury inside me. I shook my head. "What now?" I apologized. "No. You described my reaction. I don't know what wording will satisfy you. It isn't wording. Then what is it? You made a choice. Own it. His face reddened. Fine. I chose Natalie to sit there. I didn't realize you wanted the chair so badly. I didn't want furniture. I wanted my father not to rank his daughters at our grandmother's memorial. I have never ranked you. You've spent our whole lives doing it. Natalie is the heart. I'm the steady one. She represents us. I keeps things running. I say good things about both of you. You assign us parts. Every family knows people's strengths. A strength is something I can choose to use. You treat mine like a service you've already paid for. Dad glanced toward the lobby again. What do you expect family to be? He asked. People helping only when it suits them? No. People asking. You need a formal invitation to help your own mother? I need a chance to say yes. Family shouldn't need contracts. Then why does every favor you've ever done come with back interest? He flinched. I regretted it immediately. Dad had shown up for me. He had changed the battery in my car in freezing rain, carried furniture into 3 apartments, sat in an emergency room for 5 hours after I cut my hand badly enough to need stitches. He loved through action. So did I. Maybe that was why we both kept turning action into proof. That was unfair, I said. Not every favor. His eyes stayed on me. But enough of them, I added. The softness vanished. What are your terms, then? He meant it sarcastically. I answered anyway. Stop volunteering my time. Stop asking Mom or Natalie to talk me into something after I've said no. Don't praise me for being reliable when what you mean is available. And if you want to apologize for what you chose, not for how I understood it. You've really thought this through. I've had practice. And if I don't follow your rules, then you'll see less of me. The words were quiet. They were also the most frightening thing I had said all night. Dad stared at me. You'd cut off your parents over a chair? No. I'd step back from a relationship where my only acceptable answer is yes. What does step back mean? It means I won't keep arguing. I'll just leave. His face closed. Your grandmother would hate what this has done to the family. She hated wasted ham, too. We can't build our lives around everything Grandma hated. He almost smiled. Almost. Then he picked up his coat. I'm done with this conversation. Okay. You're not going to stop me? You said you're done. He put on his coat and walked into the lobby. Mom looked at me over his shoulder. I shook my head once, telling her not to come back inside. Natalie and Adam had already left, but my phone buzzed before I reached my car. Natalie, are you alive? Me? Yes. Natalie, did he apologize? Me? He apologized to my feelings. Natalie, thoughts and prayers to your feelings. I laughed in the rain. At home, I hung the photograph of Grandma and me on the wall above my kitchen table. The frame was slightly crooked. I left it that way until morning. Dad did not call for 9 days. The silence should have felt peaceful. Instead, I noticed every place his voice had been. Weather updates I had not asked for. Warnings about traffic. Questions that began as concern and ended as assignments. Mom called twice but did not carry messages. Natalie sent me a photograph of Adam holding the cracked magnifying glass over one eye. Elaine reported that the floral bowl dispute had entered a cooling phase. On the 10th morning, Dad texted, "Your rear driver's side tire looked low at the restaurant. Check the pressure." I stared at the message. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't an assignment either. I wrote, "I will. Thank you." Then I checked the tire myself. Dad's practical messages continued. Rain tonight. Close your bedroom window. Route 19 is backed up near the mall. Hardware store has the furnace filters you use on sale. He did not ask me to do anything. He also did not mention the retirement dinner, the memorial, or our conversation beneath DeMarco's coat rack. I answered some messages and ignored others. When he sent a photograph of a printer cable and asked, "Is this the right kind for your mother's computer?" I wrote, "I can't tell from the picture." Normally, that would have become a phone call, then a visit, then 40 minutes under his desk while he complained that technology was designed to humiliate him. Instead, he replied, "Okay, I'll take the old cable to the store." It was strange how much hope could fit inside an ordinary sentence. Mom began asking differently, too. "Would you like to have lunch Thursday? Are you free to help me move 2 planters Saturday morning? It's okay if not. Can I call you, or are you working?" The questions were sometimes almost painfully formal. Once she asked if she had permission to send me a recipe. "You don't need consent to send chicken instructions," I told her. "I'm trying not to assign you poultry. You're overcorrecting. That runs in this family." We met for lunch twice. She moved the planters herself before I could answer, then complained for 3 days about her shoulder. I brought her a heating pad without being asked, which confused both of us. Natalie and I began talking in small pieces. Not every day, not about everything. She sent me pictures of objects as she unpacked them at her house. Grandma's bird-shaped scissors sat beside Adam's toolbox because Natalie had no sewing supplies. The cracked magnifying glass appeared in photographs of wine labels, electric bills, and Adam's left ear. I sent her a picture of the lemon dish holding my keys. "You kept it," she wrote. I said I would. "You said it was ugly." Both things can be true. Elaine's school is corrupting you. Dad called on a Wednesday evening. I was assembling a bookshelf I had owned in a box for 8 months. 3 boards lay across my living room floor, and I had already installed 1 shelf backward. "Your mother is making dinner Sunday," he said. "Okay, she would like you to come. Would you?" A pause. "Yes." It was a small question. He answered it like it cost him something. "What time?" 6. "Should I bring anything?" "No. Just yourself." "That sounds suspicious." "Denise told me to say it. At least you're honest." He cleared his throat. "Natalie and Adam are coming. Elaine may stop by for dessert." "Okay. Okay means yes?" "Yes, Dad. I'll come." After we hung up, I examined the backward shelf. Dad would have caught it immediately. He had taught both of us how to use a level, change a tire, and distrust wall anchors included in cheap furniture. I removed the shelf and turned it around myself. Mom's roast was resting properly when I arrived Sunday. Dad opened the door wearing the grill sergeant apron. "You aren't grilling," I said. "It's an apron, not a legal document. That's not what you said when I wore it to make cookies. You got flour on the lettering. I was 16. You were careless." The words came automatically. Dad heard them after they were out. "So was I," he added. It was not an apology for my adolescence, but I accepted the amendment. He moved aside to let me in. I had brought nothing. Mom kissed my cheek and did not glance at my hands. Natalie and Adam were in the living room. Adam had brought wine with a normal cork and his own corkscrew. He held it up when he saw me. "I'm controlling the variables." "Very dependable," I said. "Don't tell Frank." Dinner was almost ready. Mom had made roast beef, mashed potatoes, green beans, and rolls. Everything smelled familiar enough to make me cautious. Dad stood in the kitchen doorway. "Claire, can you?" He stopped. All of us looked at him. His eyes moved to the stack of plates beside Mom. "Would you mind putting those on the table?" It would have been easy to refuse just to prove I could. "Sure. Thank you." I carried the plates into the dining room. Natalie followed with silverware. She set a fork on the wrong side of one plate, saw me notice, and waited. I moved past it. She grinned. "You're growing," she whispered. "I hate you." "No, you don't. Current evidence is mixed." Mom called us back to the kitchen. Dad had begun carving the roast while it rested, but the knife dragged through the meat instead of slicing cleanly. "This thing is dull," he said. "It was sharp last week," Mom replied. "Claire, give me a hand." I was still drying my hands when Natalie stepped forward and took the knife. "I'll do it." Dad looked at her. "Do you know how?" "No, but apparently people can learn things." Adam leaned against the refrigerator. "Angle the blade and use longer strokes." Natalie followed his instructions. The next slice came away neatly. Dad watched, torn between correcting her and accepting beef. "Good," he said at last. He carried the platter to the table, sat down, and immediately looked at his empty water glass. Denise? Mom unfolded her napkin. The pitcher is behind you, Frank. He turned. It was. He filled his own glass. Nothing dramatic happened. Nobody applauded. Natalie served the roast. Mom passed the potatoes. Dad asked Adam whether business had been busy and listened to the answer without turning it into advice. Halfway through dinner, he asked about my job. We reran 6,000 safety manuals because a committee changed the phrase primary access point to main entrance. I said. Why? Safety, apparently. Did you have to stay late? No. I made Martin assign part of it to someone else. Dad's fork paused. Good, he said. The word was quiet. I looked at him, but he had already returned to his plate. Elaine arrived with a chocolate pie and the floral serving bowl. I stared at it. How did you get that? You left your spare key with Denise. I did not authorize a floral transfer. Linda and Beverly have reached a settlement, Elaine announced. Natalie came out of the kitchen. What settlement? Neither of them wants it anymore. Why not? I told each of them how badly the other wanted it. That made them stop wanting it? Family affection is mysterious. Elaine set the pie on the table beside the bowl. This now belongs to Claire. It doesn't match anything I own. Then it can sit alone and reflect. After dessert, Mom began wrapping leftovers. She gave containers to Natalie and Adam, then asked if I wanted any. I'll take roast. How much? 2 slices. She packed exactly 2. Dad went downstairs. A moment later, the interior garage door opened. Claire, he called, can you come here? Mom and Natalie looked at me. I'm capable of walking into a garage, I said. The oak chair stood uncovered near the workbench. Dad had wiped away the dust and the carved back caught the overhead light. The storage company is raising its rates, he said. We need to decide. About the chair? About several things, but yes. I ran my hand along one arm. Linda said she'd take it, he continued. Natalie entered behind me. No, she didn't. Dad turned. She told me last week. She told me yesterday she only offered because you said Claire didn't want it. I said Claire wouldn't decide. That isn't the same. Dad's jaw shifted. Natalie held up her phone. I asked everyone. Pete doesn't want it. Elaine said it should go to Claire. Linda and Beverly both said Claire. Mom said Claire. Adam abstained because apparently he's Switzerland. Adam called from the kitchen. I don't know furniture law. Dad looked at me. Do you want it? Yes. The answer surprised me with its simplicity. He nodded once. Then take it. Natalie crossed her arms. That sounded generous. What do you want me to do? Perform a ceremony? No, I want you to stop acting like it's yours to award. It was my mother's, and Claire took care of her in it. I know that. Do you? Natalie, I said. She looked at me. I can handle this. Her arms dropped. Okay. Dad threw the quilt over the chair seat. Adam can load it now. No, I said. Both of them turned. I want it. But I don't want to carry it out while everyone's angry. That doesn't change the chair, Dad said. No, it changes what I remember when I look at it. He stared at me, then at the chair. Fine. I returned to the kitchen. Natalie stayed in the garage for a moment, speaking quietly to Dad. I couldn't hear the words. Mom handed me my 2 slices of roast. You said what you wanted, she said. I did. Are you all right? I think so. She touched my arm. As I put on my coat, Dad came upstairs. Stay a minute, he said. Mom began gathering empty glasses. I'll be in the kitchen, she announced, though she was already there. Dad stood beside the front door with his hands in his pockets. I owe you an apology, he said. I waited. At the memorial, I chose Natalie to sit in Mom's chair. His eyes moved toward the floor. I chose her because she looked like Mom. She was dressed right. People respond to her. I thought it made the family look... He struggled for the word. Intact. I didn't help him. And I knew you would handle everything else, he continued. I knew you'd gotten the food. I knew you'd take care of guests. I didn't think you needed the chair. I needed not to be invisible. Yes. He He said it without defense. I was wrong, he added, and what I said to you was cruel. You represent this family as much as anybody, more than don't. He stopped. Don't fix the ranking by putting me on top. His mouth tightened, but he nodded. You're right. I don't need to represent the family. What do you need? To be your daughter when I'm not doing anything for you. Dad looked at me for a long moment. I don't know why you think you weren't. Because you usually described what I did before you described me. He rubbed one hand over his face. I'm sorry, Claire. This time, there was nowhere inside the sentence for him to hide. Thank you, I said. You're not going to say it's okay? It isn't yet. He nodded again. That's fair. It was not a miracle. He did not hug me. I did not collapse into his arms and recover 39 years in the front hall. He opened the door for me. Watch the steps, he said. They might be slick. I will. Outside, Natalie was waiting beside my car. Did he do it? She asked. He apologized. Correctly. Mostly. She exhaled. I was ready to come in with notes. I'm glad you didn't. Me too. They weren't organized. I held up the leftover container. Mom gave me exactly 2 slices. Our family is healing. I looked back through the window. Dad stood in the hall, watching to make sure I reached my car. The chair is mine, I said. Natalie smiled. Adam and I can bring it Saturday, if you want, I want. Morning or afternoon? Afternoon. At 1:30 Saturday, my phone buzzed. 10 minutes away, Natalie wrote. Clear a path. Then a second message appeared. Also, Adam says your doorway is too narrow. I measured it twice. He was wrong. Adam was still wrong when they arrived. The doorway is 34 inches, I told him as he backed toward it carrying the front of the chair. The chair is 31 at the widest point, he said. Exactly. The turn is the problem. You said the doorway. I was simplifying. For whom? For the person standing in the doorway arguing while we hold solid oak. Natalie was at the other end, gripping the chair beneath the seat. Could both of you save the marriage counseling until this thing is inside? I moved. They cleared the doorway with 3 inches to spare, then reached the turn into the dining area and stopped. Adam looked at me. I folded my arms. Don't. I didn't say anything. Your face has measurements on it. We tilted the chair, rotated it past the bookcase, and lowered it beside my small dining table. The dark oak looked formal against my mismatched chairs and inexpensive rug, as though Grandma had arrived for a visit and already disapproved of the accommodations. Natalie removed the quilt. The memorial tape was gone, but the finish still showed a faint difference where it had been. One arm had a shallow scratch near the front. The repaired spindle held firm. I ran my fingers across it. 2 Christmases earlier, Grandma had watched me tighten that spindle with the Phillips screwdriver she insisted was wrong. When I finished, she shook the chair hard enough to test both the repair and my patience. A family seat belongs to the one who stays when there's nothing to watch, she had said. At the time, I thought she was thanking me. Now I heard the other part. The expectation tucked inside the praise. Ruth had loved me. She had also learned that calling me steady was an efficient way to keep me close. Both things could be true. Do you want it here? Adam asked. I stepped back. At the head of the table, the chair blocked part of the window. Against the opposite wall, it would have become decoration. Here, I said. Adam crouched to check whether the legs were level. They're fine, I told him. He rocked the chair once. Front right is short. It survived 90 years. So has Elaine. I still wouldn't use her as a ladder. Natalie took a folded packet of felt pads from her pocket. Dad bought these, she said. I looked at her. He asked me to give them to you. He said you could use them if you wanted. He said that, almost exactly. He started with, make sure Claire puts these. Then Mom looked at him, and he began again. I took the packet. Progress, Adam said. Fear, Natalie corrected. Both can improve behavior. He attached the pads after I said yes. The short legs stopped rocking. Natalie stood behind the chair but did not touch it. "Sit," I said. "No, you carried it up here. I'm not sitting in that chair again. It isn't electrified. I don't trust Elaine." I laughed. We ordered pizza and ate at the table. I took one of my old chairs. Natalie sat to my left, Adam across from her, and Grandma's chair remained empty at the head. Nobody commented. Before leaving, Natalie placed the quilt in my spare room and took the yellow mug home. "For coffee?" I asked. "For pens." Grandma used it for coffee. Grandma also reused aluminum foil. We don't have to honor every practice. At the door, she hesitated. "We're okay, right?" It would have been easy to say yes. "We're getting there," I told her. She nodded. "That's what I meant." "No, it isn't." "Fine, it's what I hoped. We're getting there." She hugged me with both arms. For once, she did not make the hug longer than I wanted. Dad came over the following Thursday. He called first. "I have a toolbox in my trunk," he said. "Would you like me to check the chair?" Adam already did. Of course he did. He put felt pads on it. Good. A pause. "Would you like coffee?" I asked. I could stop for 20 minutes. Dad arrived in a windbreaker and clean white sneakers, carrying nothing. He examined the chair from the doorway as if it were a person whose opinion concerned him. "Looks right there," he said. "I think so." He walked around it but didn't pull it out or test the repair. "Your grandmother bought that set used," he said. "Your grandfather wanted something modern." She told him modern was another word for flimsy. That sounds like her. He hated the chairs. He sat in one for 40 years. He liked her more than he hated the chairs. Dad smiled. I made coffee. We sat at the table, me in my usual chair and Dad across from me. The oak chair remained between us at the head. He asked about work. I told him Martin had tried to give me another impossible deadline, and I had divided the job between 3 people. "Did they do it right?" he asked. "Not how I would have done it." That wasn't my question. "Yes?" "They did it right." He nodded as if he understood more than the printing schedule. Dad told me retirement was boring. "It's been 3 weeks," I said. "I organized the garage. I noticed. I found 6 screwdrivers that don't belong to me. They probably belong to Grandma. She took tools. She borrowed permanently." He stared into his coffee. "I keep thinking I should call her," he said. It was the first time he had spoken about Grandma without using her death to support an argument. What would you tell her? That retirement is boring. She'd say only boring people get bored. She said that to me once. She said it to everyone. Grandma recycled material. Dad rubbed his thumb against the mug handle. "I miss her," he said. "I do too." He looked at the chair. "I'm glad you took it. I'm glad you let me decide." His mouth tightened slightly, but he nodded. When 20 minutes passed, he stood. "I should go." "You can stay. I told you 20 minutes. You asked for 20 minutes. I'm offering more." He looked at me, then sat down again. He stayed for 45. Our family did not transform all at once. Dad still called Mom from the basement to ask where she had put things he could see. Mom still carried other people's preferences around like emergency supplies. Natalie still volunteered too quickly, then discovered that a day contained only 24 hours. The difference was that the old system no longer finished each sentence for us. When Mom asked Natalie to drive her to a dental appointment, Natalie checked her calendar before saying yes. When she realized she had a work meeting, she said no instead of offering me as backup. When Dad asked if I could help him compare Medicare plans, I told him I didn't understand them any better than he did. He called the number on the brochure. A patient woman named Susan explained everything, and the Earth remained in orbit. When I agreed to bring Mom groceries during a storm, she thanked me without listing the times she had helped me. At work, Martin stopped bringing folders to my desk as if laying offerings before a machine. He still asked. Sometimes I said yes. Tessa claimed I had become moderately employable instead of spiritually available. She also made me a bowl in pottery class. It leaned to one side and was glazed a color she called ocean blue, but looked more like dental scrubs. "It represents my journey," she said. "Was the journey downhill? You don't deserve art." I put it beside Grandma's lemon dish. The oak chair remained mostly empty. I dusted it. I tightened nothing. Sometimes I placed mail on the seat, then moved it because using Grandma's chair as storage felt like inviting commentary from the dead. I thought sitting there would feel like taking something. It didn't occur to me that I was still waiting for permission. The invitation began as a message to Tessa. "I'm making dinner Sunday. Want to come?" She replied, "Who are you, and what have you done with the woman who thinks hosting is an involuntary medical condition?" I invited my friend Joe, who lived across town and had spent years offering me quiet Sunday dinners whenever my family exhausted me. I invited Elaine, then Mom, Natalie, and Adam. I stared at Dad's name longer than the others. I wanted him there. Not because excluding him would make a point, and not because including him would prove forgiveness. I wanted him there because he was my father, and I still liked the way he argued about tools. Dinner at my place. "Sunday, if you're free," I wrote. 6 o'clock, I'm cooking. You don't need to bring anything. Dad answered, "We'd like to come. Thank you for asking." Mom called 10 minutes later. "What are you making?" "Tomato soup, roast chicken, salad, bread. Do you need dessert?" "No." "Do you want dessert?" "Yes." "Apple cake?" "With new cinnamon. I'll check the date." On Sunday, I began the onions too late. Grandma's recipe card lay beside the stove, her green writing cutting through mine. "Don't rush onions, I'm aware," I told the card. The onions ignored our family history and took the time they required. Joe arrived first with wine. Tessa brought her leaning bowl because she said every table needed danger. Elaine arrived carrying the floral serving bowl filled with salad. "That lives here now," I told her. "I'm helping it adjust." Mom and Dad came together with the apple cake. Dad handed it to me instead of carrying it directly to the kitchen. "Where would you like this?" "On the counter." He put it there. Natalie and Adam arrived last. She held up empty hands. I brought myself. Mom said that was allowed. I'm still suspicious. My apartment filled quickly. Joe opened the wine. Tessa explained pottery failure to Elaine, who asked whether her bowl was supposed to look injured. Mom inspected the soup and added nothing. Dad and Adam stood near the bookshelf discussing the backward shelf I had corrected before anyone saw it. Natalie came into the kitchen. "Need help?" "Yes. Dress the salad." She looked pleased by the direct answer. "What dressing?" "The jar in the refrigerator." "How much?" "Enough." "That is not a measurement. You'll survive." She did. I set the food on the table in serving dishes that did not match. The salad sat inside Grandma's peonies. The bread filled Tessa's crooked bowl. Mom's apple cake waited on the counter beside the lemon dish. Everyone found a seat. Dad sat beside Mom. Elaine took the chair nearest the wine. Tessa and Joe argued over which of them was more likely to spill soup. Natalie sat beside Adam. Grandma's oak chair remained empty. I stood at the stove filling bowls. "Sit down," Mom said. "The soup's getting cold. I'm coming." I carried 2 bowls to the table, then went back for 2 more. Everyone was capable of carrying a bowl. I knew this. They knew it too. Nobody stopped me because my habits had learned to survive without assistance. I filled Dad's water glass. "Thank you," he said. I reached for Natalie's. She covered it with her hand. "I can do it. I have the pitcher, and I have arms." She took it gently. I looked around the table. The chicken still needed carving. Bread had not been passed. Joe had no spoon. Elaine was already picking croutons from the salad with her fingers. There would always be something left to do. Grandma's voice returned, clear and dry. "A family seat belongs to the one who stays when there's nothing to watch." For years I had heard praise in that sentence, then obligation. Standing at my table, I finally heard the part Grandma had never managed to say. Staying did not require standing. I put down the serving spoon. Dad reached for the carving knife. "I can do that," he said. Natalie passed Joe a spoon. Mom moved the bread toward Tessa. Nobody waited for me to direct them. I walked to the head of the table and pulled out the oak chair. The repaired spindle pressed firmly beneath my hand. The wood gave its familiar low creak as I sat. For 1 second, everyone went quiet. Then Elaine tasted the soup. Needs salt, she said. It does not, Mom replied. Natalie picked up the shaker and looked at me. You want to decide? No. She salted her own bowl. Conversation rose around the table, overlapping, imperfect, nobody in charge of it. Dad carved uneven slices. Tessa spilled wine and blamed the angle of her bowl. Mom laughed hard enough to cover her mouth. Natalie reached across me for the bread without asking me to pass it. I leaned back in Grandma's chair and let them manage. The chair did not make me the representative of anything. It simply held my weight.